Following the conclusion of Solo Leveling Season 1, the main protagonist, Sung Jinwoo, had just endured a grueling battle alongside Igris, leaving his body so exhausted that he slept until the following afternoon. At that moment, Jinwoo received a phone call from his younger sister, Gina, which abruptly woke him up. It turned out that Jinwoo had completely forgotten about his sister's parent-teacher conference. He hurriedly dressed in a handsome suit and rushed to her school, looking so drastically different that his own sister could barely recognize him. Recalling the events of 10 years ago, the first dungeon gates began appearing all over the world. Since then, a continuous war has raged between dungeon monsters and awakened hunters who possess combat abilities. Sung Jinwoo, needing to care for his sick mother and support his high school-aged sister, did not hesitate to choose the hunter profession to earn a living for his family. Initially, he was merely a low-rank hunter who constantly suffered brutal beatings from monsters. Normally, a hunter's abilities cannot grow after awakening, but during a double dungeon raid, Jinwoo received a level-up system similar to a video game. From that point on, Jinwoo worked tirelessly to hone his strength through countless battles. Sometime later, he obtained the formula for the Elixir of Life, a miraculous medicine capable of curing any disease. Along with this, he acquired the job class of Shadow Monarch, granting him the power to command an entire army of shadow soldiers. Returning to the present, Jinwoo's appearance has changed so drastically that even his sister was stunned, while the female students whispered in admiration at the handsome stranger. Gina, knowing her brother was single, wanted to set him up, but he currently only wanted to focus on being a hunter. A moment later, Jinwoo met directly with the homeroom teacher to check on his sister's academic progress. According to the teacher, Gina had excellent grades and was a role model for her peers. Furthermore, her practice test scores were more than enough to get her into her desired university. Hearing this, Jinwoo felt incredibly satisfied and relieved. At the end of the meeting, the teacher asked if he would support his sister becoming a hunter. Naturally, Jinwoo disagreed, knowing full well that being a hunter was an exceedingly dangerous profession. Seeing his resolve, the teacher then asked Jinwoo for a crucial favor. Right after that, Jinwoo went to meet Song Yi, an E-rank hunter who had previously raided a dungeon with him. Through their conversation, Song Yi learned that Jinwoo was the older brother of her classmate, Gina. She admitted that she had dropped out of school to become a hunter for money and had no intention of returning, so Jinwoo did not need to waste his breath persuading her. Hearing this, Jinwoo could only sigh, warning her that making a living as an E-rank hunter was very difficult. However, he offered that if she tagged along with his team, she could earn a substantial amount of money. With that, Jinwoo invited Song Yi to join him on a dungeon raid that evening. Meanwhile, the S-rank hunter Hwang Dong-soo had taken a flight from America and arrived in Japan, where he was greeted by Woo Jin-chul, an executive of the Korean Hunters Association. Right away, Dong-soo insulted Japan, calling it a damp country not worth a long stay, stating he would leave immediately after finishing his business. It turned out that Dong-soo intended to kill Jinwoo and his associates inside a dungeon because Jinwoo had previously slaughtered his older brother. He demanded that the Hunters Association stay out of this matter and explicitly warned Jinchul not to interfere. Seeing Dong-soo's aggressive demeanor, Jinchul worried that a massive conflict was on the horizon. On another front, the guild master of the Hunters Guild was reporting the situation on Jeju Island to the association chairman. Recently, hunters had recovered numerous feathers and human remains scattered across the ocean. This proved that the ant monsters had evolved the ability to fly through the sky. Although they could not fly very far at present, it was only a matter of time before they could reach the mainland. Therefore, the association chairman decided to accelerate the investigation into their rapid evolution. That evening, Jinwoo proactively went to meet two management members of the White Tiger Guild. He wanted to bring Song Yi along to observe the hunter training process of major guilds. The two managers, fully aware of Jinwoo's immense strength, happily agreed to his request. Jinwoo would enter the dungeon alongside Song Yi to ensure her safety. The area under the White Tiger Guild's jurisdiction was experiencing a surge in dungeon gates. They introduced A-rank hunter Kim Chul as the captain leading the strike squad. The team consisted of 5 B-rank hunters and 2 C-rank hunters, leaving Jinwoo and Song Yi as the only E-ranks tagging along to learn. Hearing the roster, Kim Chul was highly annoyed, feeling burdened by 2 E-rank deadweights. As for Jinwoo, his sole purpose was to let Song Yi witness the cruel reality inside a dungeon. However, because the strike squad was so strong, he worried they might clear the dungeon too easily. The manager simply hoped Jinwoo would stand back and let the other hunters have their moment to shine. Shortly after, the 10-person squad entered the C-rank dungeon through the gate, with Jinwoo walking at the very back just to protect Song Yi. Yet, the moment he stepped through, Jinwoo was startled, realizing something was terribly wrong. This was the exact same ominous feeling he had experienced during a previous disastrous raid. Just seconds later, the gate turned a blood red, sending everyone into a panic. Jinwoo tried to pull Song Yi back out, but they were forcefully sucked into the portal. Before disappearing, he shouted at the two assistants outside to immediately contact the main strike force and bring them there. Meanwhile, outside, the White Tiger Guild Master received news of the Red Gate and rushed to the scene. Inside, the strike squad had been dragged into a freezing, snow-covered wasteland. The gate vanished completely, leaving the hunters terrified and unsure of how to return home. Kim Chul informed the group that they were trapped in a red gate, causing massive panic among the members. Since Song Yi knew nothing about this, Jinwoo had to explain that a red gate is a special dungeon entirely isolated from the outside world. No one from the outside could intervene to save them, and those inside could only escape by defeating the dungeon boss or waiting for a dungeon break. Furthermore, the monsters here were vastly stronger than those in a standard C-rank dungeon. Right at that moment, an ice arrow flew in from a distance, instantly killing a hunter in the group. Song Yi was also targeted, but Jinwoo embraced her and easily deflected the lethal arrow. Kim Chul and Jinwoo recognized these monsters as ice elves. The way they attacked proved they were targeting the weakest hunters first. They even directed lethal intent toward Jinwoo, which severely angered him. Following the initial ambush, the monsters scattered into the forest to hunt them down one by one. Jinwoo warned Song Yi that these creatures were known as White Phantoms due to their extreme cruelty. Kim Chul then declared that the dungeon's difficulty had skyrocketed. He demanded that if they wanted to live, they had to absolutely obey the strongest person, which was him. However, lacking the strength to protect everyone, Kim Chul proposed splitting the group in two. Jinwoo instantly knew this arrogant man was preparing to abandon the weak. As expected, Kim Chul selected only the B-rank hunters to join him, kicking a C-rank youth out of the group despite his desperate pleas. Naturally, Jinwoo and Song Yi were also forbidden from joining his elite squad. Kim Chul explained that a day inside this dungeon equaled an hour outside, meaning it could take a month to kill the boss, or wait for a break. He coldly deemed the weaker hunters a burden that needed to be discarded, stating he and the strong would kill the boss to bring everyone back. At this point, a B-rank female hunter named Park Heejin requested to leave Kim Chul's team to follow Jinwoo. Heejin knew Kim Chul was an amateur who failed to even notice the monster's arrow. Having witnessed Jinwoo's skills, she knew he was far stronger than an A-rank. After the divide, Kim Chul decided to take the main road leading to the monster's lair, while Jinwoo led his group into the dense forest. The two leaders sarcastically wished each other luck, hoping the other could keep their life. Along the way, Kim Chul pointed out ice bear claw marks on the trees, mocking Jinwoo's decision to enter the forest as a death sentence. Yet, he could not help but question why an E-rank like Jinwoo was allowed to lead a team containing a B-rank hunter. Suddenly, Kim Chul heard a noise and alerted his team. 3 massive ice bears appeared before them, terrifying the squad. Seeing this, Kim Chul told everyone to just focus on staying alive while he took the vanguard alone. He used his heavy shield to block the charging bear's claws, then swung his axe, cleanly slicing the massive beast in half. Immediately after, he brutally slaughtered the remaining 2 bears. On the other side, Heejin hastily urged her group to stop when she spotted bear claw marks on a tree trunk. Knowing this forest was ice bear territory, she suggested turning back before encountering them. However, Jinwoo insisted they go deeper into the woods. He reasoned that, since it was bear territory, they would only have to fight bears, which was far better than facing the highly intelligent and sadistic ice elves. Hearing this, Heejin finally understood Jinwoo's tactical logic. Noticing the freezing temperatures, Jinwoo opened his inventory and pulled out warm winter clothes for everyone. The group was utterly shocked, never expecting him to possess spatial magic. Furthermore, Jinwoo could carry an immense amount of supplies, a feat even high-rank hunters could not achieve. At this point, Song Yi could no longer hide her curiosity and asked who Jinwoo truly was. He simply patted her head, promising to take full responsibility for her safety since he brought her here. He asked the other 2 not to ask questions or make any demands. Suddenly, an ice bear appeared, but Jinwoo told them not to fear. He switched to his assassin class, boosting his stats by 40% when facing beast-type monsters. Meanwhile, outside the dungeon, White Tiger Guild Master Baek Yunho was feeling completely helpless because he could not enter the gate. He could only place his hopes on Kim Chul, praying that the A-rank hunter would keep the team safe. Manager An then mentioned that the squad included a reawakened hunter named Sung Jinwoo. Hearing this, Yunho immediately asked for confirmation. But since the manager had not asked Jinwoo directly, the information remained unverified. Right at that moment, Hwang Dong-soo arrived at the gate and coldly greeted Yunho. Yunho knew perfectly well that this man returning from America had sinister intentions, so he immediately ordered Dong-soo to leave White Tiger territory. However, Dong-soo aggressively questioned Yunho about why Jinwoo was allowed into a dungeon managed by their guild. Knowing it was a red gate, Dong-soo smugly assumed Jinwoo would die a miserable death inside. As for Woo Jinchul, he felt Jinwoo was actually quite lucky. Being trapped in the gate meant Jinwoo avoided a direct confrontation with the deadly Dong-soo, though Jinchul still worried whether Jinwoo could survive the dungeon itself. Inside the dungeon, Jinwoo was effortlessly punching the ice bear to death without breaking a sweat. To make things better, he received a massive amount of experience points, since it was a red gate. That night, the group butchered the bear and enjoyed a hearty, filling meal. Although their surroundings seemed safe, they remained highly vigilant. After eating, Jinwoo suddenly declared he was going for a quick workout around the forest, making Song Yi think he was an incredibly eccentric person. In reality, Jinwoo was heading straight into the ice bear's lair all by himself. Seeing that their numbers were quite large, he summoned his shadow army, led by Commander Igris. This would be the very first combat mission he assigned to his shadow soldiers. Following Jinwoo's command, the shadow army charged directly at the bears to exterminate them. The battle was surprisingly balanced, with both sides trading heavy blows. Whenever the infantry was knocked down, the shadow mages in the back provided intense fire support. Watching this, Jinwoo felt his shadow army was fighting far beyond his expectations. However, to maintain the army, Jinwoo had to continuously consume his mana. Once the regular ice bears were wiped out, the alpha bear finally revealed itself. It was visibly enraged, seeing its kin slaughtered and scattered across the ground. This boss monster was exceptionally powerful, easily shattering Jinwoo formation all on its own. It even let out a deafening roar that completely wiped out all the shadow soldiers in an instant. Jinwoo had exhausted his mana and could no longer regenerate his troops, so he entrusted the task of finishing the alpha bear entirely to Igris. Receiving Jinwoo's order, Igris calmly stepped forward. The moment the giant bear attacked, Igris leaped gracefully to dodge the strike and slashed its shoulder. This was immediately followed by a lethal thrust from mid-air. Upon landing, the Shadow Knight swiftly severed both of the monster's legs. Witnessing Igris' incredible agility left Jinwoo absolutely amazed. Unable to move, the bear attempted to use its devastating roar once again. However, Igris did not give the beast a chance to make a sound, swinging his blade and cleanly decapitating the monster on the spot. The battle concluded so swiftly that Jinwoo secretly thought to himself that if Igris had used a sword during their previous duel, he would have had zero chance of winning. Even though their levels were now balanced, Jinwoo still felt he was the weaker combatant. When everything settled, Jinwoo sincerely thanked Igris for fighting so hard. Meanwhile, Kim Chul's squad was being utterly massacred by the Ice Elves. He cursed himself, wondering how an elite member of the White Tiger Guild was completely powerless in this situation. One by one, the members of his team were brutally murdered, while Kim Chul stood by helplessly. When his very last teammate was killed, Kim Chul completely lost his mind, screaming like a madman before sprinting away in sheer terror to escape the elves. The dungeon boss silently tracked Kim Chul, intending to use him to locate the remaining hunters. Right after defeating the bears, Jinwoo used his shadow extraction skill. The entire sleuth of bears slowly rose from the ground, becoming a brand new addition to his army. Jinwoo was highly satisfied, seeing the first results of his trip as a massive success. The White Tiger Guild members outside were burning with anxiety about the situation inside the gate. Only Hwang Dong-soo firmly believed Jinwoo would die without a trace. As Dong-soo was about to leave, he realized a logical inconsistency. Jinwoo was not a member of the White Tiger Guild, yet he was allowed inside their gate. Manager An was forced to admit that Jinwoo was an acquaintance who expressed interest in exploring a C-rank gate, so he brought him along. Hearing this, Dong-soo furiously grabbed An by the throat, demanding he spill all information regarding Jinwoo. Baek Yoonho swiftly intercepted his arm, refusing to let the arrogant man run wild on his territory. Dongsu was not one to back down, and eagerly prepared to fight Yoonho right then and there. Manager An panicked, terrified that these two S-rank hunters would destroy the area, and desperately tried to stop them. However, both sides unleashed their magical power and threw heavy punches at each other. Meanwhile, Kim Chul, having fled the White Phantoms, was now facing the extreme freezing cold. Delusional to the end, he kept convincing himself that if he had been fully equipped, he would have never lost so badly. Emerging from the forest, Kim Chul stumbled upon the bloody battlefield littered with bare corpses left by Jinwoo. Refusing to believe an E-rank like Jinwoo could be this strong, he assumed the White Phantoms had massacred the beasts, so he frantically kept running. Outside, Woo Jin-chul intervened just in time, using his own hands to block the two S-rank hunters' punches. He sarcastically thanked them for holding back, so his arms were not shattered. Jin-chul then answered Dongsu questions, confirming that he had personally re-evaluated Jinwoo a few months prior, and the result was still definitively E-rank. He added that Dongsu brother, Hwang Dong-suk, had simply perished in a gate while fighting monsters. Hearing this, Dongsu temporarily accepted Jin-chul's explanation, though he refused to abandon his murderous intent toward Jinwoo. Right at that moment, Dongsu received an urgent work text, forcing him to leave the area and temporarily spare Jinwoo. Manager An, fully aware of Jinwoo's true capabilities, remained absolutely certain that the young man would survive and walk out of that red gate. Kim Chul wandered aimlessly until he stumbled upon Jinwoo's team, happily eating and drinking. Extremely bitter, he questioned how these weaklings were still alive, especially with warm clothes and tents in such freezing conditions. Furious, he stomped over and announced that his entire squad had been wiped out. He used their lack of food and gear as an excuse, accusing someone in this camp of monopolizing the supplies and sending his team to their deaths. He threatened to slaughter the three of them for harboring the culprit if they did not confess immediately. Before Kim Chul could attack, Jinwoo returned and forcefully hurled him dozens of meters away. Jinwoo coldly stated that Kim Chul was the one who put his own teammates in danger. Worse yet, Kim Chul had inadvertently led a group of uninvited guests straight to their camp. Immediately after, Jinwoo ordered the monsters hiding nearby to drop their concealment, as he had already sensed them. As expected, the dungeon boss emerged with a massive horde of minions to hunt Jinwoo down. This boss viewed regular hunters as complete trash. Jinwoo was the only one worthy of his attention. Suddenly, Jinwoo realized he could converse normally with the monsters. It seemed the system allowed him to understand their language, making communication much easier. The White Phantom boss, Baruka, stated that his subordinate had witnessed Jinwoo's strength and wished to duel him. However, before the fight could even begin, Jinwoo dashed forward and instantly decapitated the subordinate. He then aimed directly at the boss, but Baruka possessed incredible speed, and the slash only managed to hit his mount. The boss deduced that Jinwoo was not actually human but was merely blending in among the hunters. He explained that a mysterious voice constantly commanded him to exterminate humans, yet when standing before Jinwoo, the voice was completely silent. Hearing this, Jinwoo suspected that the boss also received orders from the system, and because Jinwoo was a player, the monster was not forced to attack him. Baruka then demanded that Jinwoo hand over the humans behind him. Jinwoo questioned why the boss was so obsessed with killing humans, but the system seemingly restricted the monster from answering. Realizing this, Jinwoo stopped asking and firmly refused to hand over his companions. Understanding that Jinwoo intended to oppose him, the monster warned that Jinwoo was at a severe numerical disadvantage. However, Jinwoo immediately summoned his shadow army, proving that his forces were actually far larger. The other hunters in the group were terrified, surrounded by monsters and unable to believe the hidden depths of Jinwoo's power. Knowing a deathmatch was inevitable, the boss commanded his subordinates to charge. Both sides clashed violently with their weapons drawn. Realizing they had no place in this battle, the three hunters tried to retreat. The monsters attempted to assassinate them, but Jinwoo swiftly intervened, slicing the attackers into pieces. During the fight, Jinwoo felt it was understandable for the boss to underestimate him. He was rapidly draining his mana to continuously regenerate his shadow soldiers. Furthermore, the boss was visibly stronger and possessed the speed to effectively pressure Jinwoo, forcing him to remain highly cautious. Even combining forces with Igris might not be enough to secure a victory. Jinwoo urgently needed a combatant stronger than his current soldiers. At this moment, the boss formally introduced himself as Baruka. In response, Jinwoo drew another weapon and revealed his own name. The two sides clashed once again, engaging in a highly balanced exchange of blows. Baruka's close combat skills were formidable, causing significant difficulties for Jinwoo. In a moment of carelessness, Jinwoo took a heavy kick from the monster. However, he quickly retaliated using a fireball launched by one of his shadow mages. Meanwhile, still harboring deep resentment, Kim Chul grabbed his sword and charged at Jinwoo with murderous intent. At the same time, the boss rejoined the fray, placing Jinwoo in a dangerous 2-on-1 situation. But as Baruka lunged forward, a massive Shadow Knight suddenly appeared, leaving the boss stunned. Knowing Kim Chul would never change his treacherous nature, Jinwoo had ordered Igris to handle him. Igris first deployed a smokescreen, then swiftly executed Kim Chul on the spot, turning him into the newest addition to the Shadow Army. As Baruka approached, the newly resurrected Kim Chul raised his heavy shield and knocked the boss away. Jinwoo named this new, imposing shadow warrior Iron. Retaining his past grudge, Iron let out a deafening roar, directly taunting Baruka. Finding the battle increasingly entertaining, the boss charged at Iron to eliminate him first. Since Iron was a heavy tank with slow movements, he failed to land a single hit on Baruka. On the sidelines, the three hunters watched wide-eyed at Jinwoo's spectacular battle. Some even questioned if they were dreaming, unable to grasp the reality unfolding before them. Feeling utterly unsatisfied fighting the sluggish Iron, Baruka boldly challenged Jinwoo and Igris to jump in and make things interesting. Seeing the opponent's sheer confidence, Jinwoo instantly joined the fray alongside his two knights. While Iron continuously provoked the boss, Jinwoo and Igris launched a coordinated, relentless assault. Exploiting a brief opening, Jinwoo stabbed at Baruka from behind, but the monster agilely dodged the fatal blow, leaving Jinwoo amazed. Jinwoo had to admit Baruka was incredibly strong, but he coldly pointed out that the boss's entire army had already been wiped out by the Shadow Soldiers. Furious at this revelation, Baruka charged with everything he had, determined to fight Jinwoo to the bitter end. This time, Jinwoo hurled his dagger directly at the opponent. Baruka thought it was a foolish move, but Jinwoo used his telekinesis to bring the dagger spinning back, shattering the boss's weapon. He then ordered Iron to restrain Baruka in a crushing bear hug, allowing the shadow mages to engulf the boss in scorching flames. Pushed to the brink, Baruka erupted in rage, swearing to kill Jinwoo at any cost. However, Jinwoo calmly stepped close, lightly tapped the monster's ribs, and declared the battle was over. Immediately after, Iron raised his massive hammer and smashed it down, ending Baruka's life instantly. After defeating the boss, Jinwoo checked his newly gained levels. He noticed Iron brutally and excessively bashing Baruka's corpse, forcing Jinwoo to reprimand him and demand more restraint in the future. Instead of being sad, Iron appeared highly excited, proving he would bring a boisterous energy to the Shadow Army. Jinwoo quickly returned to the group, announcing that the battle was over and it was time to go home. The gate finally opened, bringing immense joy to everyone. However, Jinwoo lingered behind briefly to process Baruka's corpse. After an agonizingly long wait, Baek Yoonho finally saw figures emerging from the gate. Initially thrilled, he assumed Kim Chul had successfully cleared the dungeon. However, the first to step out were merely the B and C rank members of the White Tiger Guild. The next two were Jinwoo and Song Yi, filling Manager On with immense pride regarding Jinwoo's strength. The moment everyone exited, the red gate completely vanished. Yoonho frantically asked where Kim Chul was, demanding to know why only the lower-ranked hunters had returned. Heejin remained silent in fear, prompting Yoonho to forcefully detain Jinwoo, demanding to know what happened inside. Jinwoo simply stated he was exhausted and had no desire to speak further. Seeing this, Yoonho used physical force, insisting Jinwoo explain why 6 White Tiger members were missing, as the guildmaster bore responsibility for their deaths. Jinwoo coldly countered that he had saved the remaining survivors, and Yoonho should be thanking him instead. Calming down, Yoonho apologized for offending him. As Jinwoo walked away, Yoonho wondered why the young man was so unapproachable. Heejin later explained that after killing the boss, Jinwoo's mood had suddenly turned very sour. Manager On suggested Jinwoo was likely just tired and was not a bad person at heart. Hearing this, Yoonho ordered the manager to recruit Jinwoo into the White Tiger Guild at any cost. Later, Jinwoo carefully escorted Song-yi all the way to her home. To his surprise, she addressed him casually by his first name and thanked him for the day. This left Jinwoo quite puzzled, unsure of what the young girl was planning. From the dungeon raid, the most valuable item Jinwoo acquired was Baruka's dagger. He had also attempted to use shadow extraction on Baruka 3 times, but all attempts ended in failure. He suspected the boss's stats were simply too high for his current skill level. Regardless, he had successfully gained a powerful new shadow soldier in the form of the aggressive Iron. The next morning, Yoo Jin-ho met up with Jinwoo to go dungeon raiding together. On the way, Jinwoo wanted to pick up one more person, Song-yi. As soon as she entered the car, Song-yi spoke intimately with Jinwoo, utterly shocking Jin-ho. They even discussed spending the previous evening together, leading Jin-ho to assume they were dating. He frantically warned Jinwoo that Song-yi was still a minor. Jinwoo, entirely unbothered, stated it was perfectly normal and nothing to worry about. Hearing this, Jin-ho was left speechless, never expecting his boss to have such preferences. Shortly after, Jinwoo allowed Jin-ho to witness his shadow army effortlessly exterminating monsters. Seeing these shadowy warriors for the first time, Jin-ho was completely awestruck. Jinwoo casually revealed this was one of his acquired skills, choosing not to explain further to save time. Jin-ho assumed these warriors would be highly aggressive, but with a single snap of Jinwoo's fingers, they obeyed perfectly. The soldiers then obediently helped collect the dungeon magic crystals. Jin-ho felt entirely useless, unable to assist his boss at all, though he was relieved when a shadow soldier gifted him a few crystals as thanks. Meanwhile, an American hunter was startled to encounter a Japanese-speaking man inside a dungeon. The hunters were terrified, initially mistaking the man for a monster. This mysterious figure was actually Jinwoo's father, who had been trapped inside the dungeon network for a decade. After completing their raids, Jinwoo and Jin-ho went to a barbecue restaurant for drinks. Jinwoo had successfully helped Jin-ho clear 19 dungeons, fulfilling his previous promise. Now, Jin-ho only needed to pass a written exam to obtain his guildmaster license. Jinwoo informed him that he would be extremely busy soon and unavailable for contact. Intoxicated and feeling inadequate, Jin-ho sadly assumed he was too bothersome and untrustworthy. He confessed that his own biological brother hated him, leaving them completely estranged. In contrast, Jinwoo had continuously helped and protected him. Drunkenly, Jin-ho wished Jinwoo was his real brother. Hearing this, Jinwoo filled their glasses, toasted, and declared he would be Jin-ho's older brother from now on. Overjoyed to the point of tears, Jin-ho frantically piled more meat onto Jinwoo's plate. On another front, Jinwoo's father was detained by the American Hunter Association. He explained that he had been trapped inside a dungeon for 10 years, and coincidentally, it connected to a gate in the United States, which was how he ended up there. However, the American Hunter Association remained highly suspicious, believing him to be a humanoid monster. Since he spoke Japanese, they struggled to gather any useful information from him. Therefore, they requested the assistance of a fellow Korean hunter, Hwang Dong-soo, calling him back to America to conduct an interrogation. The next morning, Jinwoo said goodbye to his sister, telling her he would be away on business for about a week. Seeing this, Jina assumed her brother was going on a date. Jinwoo did not want to explain further, leading her to believe her assumption was completely true. In reality, Jinwoo was returning to conquer the demon castle. When he previously fought the Hellhound Cerberus, he was only level 20. After clearing multiple dungeons since then, his current level had tripled. Jinwoo theorized that conquering the demon castle should now be significantly easier, so he used the key to open the gate and stepped inside. The system issued a new quest for Jinwoo, stating that the castle housed a massive number of demons. The completion requirement was to collect 10,000 demon souls. However, Jinwoo had an additional goal, which was to gather the ingredients necessary to craft the elixir of life. Whether he needed to kill 10,000 or 100,000, he resolved to slaughter every single one of them to secure the materials. With this determination, he drew Baruka's dagger and began his ruthless sweep. Meanwhile, having completed his written exam, Yoo Jin-ho was now fully qualified to manage a guild. He asked his father to grant him control over their family guild, arguing that letting an outsider manage it was a highly dangerous move. Hearing this, Jin-ho's father understood that his son wanted to partner with Sung Jin-woo. He had already heard the reports that Jin-woo had survived 3 major dungeon incidents. The first was the double dungeon, followed by the Hwang Dong-suk incident. And finally, the recent case where hunters executed criminals inside a dungeon. Surviving all three events proved that Jinwoo was exceptionally strong. Furthermore, Jinwoo had helped Jinho clear numerous other dungeons. His father also knew Jinwoo was the leader of the surviving hunters from the White Tiger Guild's Red Gate incident. Consequently, he finally placed his trust in his son, handing over the management of the family guild to him. However, this came with one strict condition. Jinho had to bring Sung Jinwoo into their family guild at all costs, especially since the White Tiger Guild was currently actively trying to recruit him. During this time, Jinwoo had slaughtered hundreds of demons, but failed to extract any of their souls. Instead, the only item he received was an entry permit for the next floor. Up ahead, a glowing yellow pillar indicated the direction he needed to travel. Jinwoo felt this dungeon was absurdly massive, resembling an entire city contained within a single building. Realizing that traveling on foot would be exhausting, he summoned his alpha bear to assist him. Before Jinwoo even issued a command, the bear roared and charged straight at the demon horde, sending them flying with every step. Pleased, Jinwoo officially named his shadow bear Tank. On another front, Hunter Cha Haein was taking a relaxing swim after her recent dungeon raids. As she exited the pool, her impressive physique drew admiring gazes from everyone around her. However, Haein appeared somewhat troubled by recent events. She had acquired information regarding the mutated feathers found on Jeju Island, but neither the Hunter Association nor the Hunters Guild Master had disclosed this to the public, fearing it would cause mass panic. Instead, they were secretly assembling a strike force composed of the strongest hunters to prepare for a major landing operation on the island. When Jinwoo first obtained the Demon Castle key, he assumed it was an S-rank dungeon, yet all the monsters he had encountered so far were only B-rank level. Their numbers were overwhelming, and with each new floor, they grew progressively stronger. Jinwoo focused entirely on hunting the demons holding the floor permits, making his ascent quite effortless. He analyzed the castle's structure and deduced there were exactly 100 floors. If he could clear all of them, his strength would undoubtedly reach terrifying new heights. His only concern was his limited food supply, as he had promised his sister he would return home in exactly 1 week. This turned his expedition into a grueling race against time. Over the following days, Jinwoo did nothing but eat and massacre monsters across the dungeon floors. Before long, he successfully completed the quest to slay 10,000 demons. Standing before him now was the massive boss monster of the 50th floor. Jinwoo wondered just how far he could push himself during this raid. He then summoned his entire shadow army, fully prepared for a decisive battle. Meanwhile, Manager An and Hunter Park Heejin were keeping a close eye on Jinwoo's daily movements. Their primary objective was to recruit him into the White Tiger Guild under Baek Yoonho's strict orders. However, upon visiting his home that day, they only met his sister. Since Jinwoo had claimed he was going on vacation, they had no choice but to leave empty-handed. According to An's intelligence, Jinwoo had not participated in any dungeon raids recently, nor were there any records of him traveling abroad. His sudden disappearance left Manager An deeply puzzled about his true whereabouts. Inside the Demon Castle, Jinwoo commanded his army to eliminate the lower-level monsters while he targeted the massive boss, aiming to swiftly claim its head. Thanks to his increased intelligence stat, Jinwoo could store more shadow soldiers and possessed an abundant mana pool to sustain their combat power. He simply wondered how long the giant boss intended to sit idly on its throne. Suddenly, the monster stood up and swung its massive mace, launching a devastating attack on the shadow army. Jinwoo quickly dodged, then reinforced his body and delivered a straight punch directly to the monster's face. Seeing the boss sent flying dozens of meters away, Jinwoo was genuinely surprised by his own strength. However, the monster quickly emerged from the rubble and charged fiercely at him. Knowing he could not dodge, Jinwoo immediately ordered Iron to step in and block with his shield. While defending, Jinwoo realized this massive boss was surprisingly agile. When the monster finally revealed an opening, Jinwoo tossed aside his shield, drew his dagger, and attacked the target from behind. Yet, the creature reacted incredibly fast, forcing Jinwoo to use his ruler's reach skill to pull himself away from a crushing mace strike. Jinwoo deduced that the monster could accurately read his movements. To kill it, he had to deal lethal damage to its weak point, which was the head. The boss relentlessly chased Jinwoo around the cavern. When the perfect opportunity arose, Jinwoo dashed straight toward the building ahead. The monster, completely enraged, blindly smashed into the structure. Seizing the moment, Jinwoo drew a second dagger, leaped down from above, and delivered two precise slashes directly into the target's neck. This decisive strike killed the beast, rewarding Jinwoo with a crucial item known as the World Tree Fragment. On the other side of the world, Jinwoo's father was undergoing interrogation by Hwang Dong-soo under the orders of the American Hunter Association. He firmly asserted that he was not a monster, even offering to undergo genetic testing to prove it. Dong-soo, however, only wanted to extract whatever information the man had gathered inside the dungeon. Il-hwan countered by asking what humanity truly knew about the gates and the monsters within them. Still harboring deep anger over Jinwoo, Dong-soo was in no mood to answer the question. Il-hwan then explained that the dungeons and monsters were a catastrophic force preparing to invade their world. Il-hwan stated his sole purpose was to find a way to prevent this impending disaster. Dong-soo dismissed this as utter nonsense, arrogantly claiming there were millions of hunters ready to fight back. Il-hwan firmly retorted that against the true power of these monsters, human hunters were completely meaningless, and even an S-rank like Dong-soo would be nothing to them. Deeply offended, Dong-soo aggressively brought up Il-hwan's family. He revealed he knew about Il-hwan's wife and two children, specifically mentioning Sung Jin-woo. Releasing a sinister aura, Dong-soo lied with a cruel smirk, claiming he had already killed Jin-woo. Enraged beyond measure, Il-hwan immediately unleashed a brutal beating upon Dong-soo. Meanwhile, Jin-woo and his shadow army had ascended to the 75th floor of the demon castle. Faced with Jin-woo's overwhelming power, the monsters had absolutely no strength to fight back. Even the boss monster, Metis, was left completely dumbfounded when he realized Jin-woo was suddenly standing right behind him. He never expected his entire army to cower in fear before a single man like this. Without a moment of hesitation, Jin-woo coldly leaped down and cleanly severed the demon's head, completely destroying his throne in the process. After executing this boss, Jin-woo gained multiple levels and received several valuable items. At the same time, firefighters were mobilized to extinguish a massive blaze right in the middle of an American city. Looking at the devastating ruins, the American Hunter Association realized that a brutal battle between two S-rank hunters had just occurred. In mere moments, Hwang Dong-soo had been mercilessly beaten into the ground by Il-hwan, entirely unable to defend himself or fight back. Back in the demon castle, Jinwoo had successfully cleared the 75th floor, but his food supplies had completely run out, forcing him to halt his expedition. Summarizing his gains, he had acquired numerous pieces of high-tier equipment and valuable items. The first was the earring from the giant boss on the 50th floor, along with the necklace from Metis on the 75th floor. When wearing both items simultaneously, he received a slight stat boost. There was one final slot remaining in the accessory set, proving there was still one more boss he had yet to defeat. He also obtained the Orb of Avarice, an item that significantly increased the magical power of his shadow mages. The next reward was from a quest, containing a random cursed box. Inside was a mysterious key with no specific information. Since this item was not his current priority, Jinwoo simply tossed it into his inventory. He focused entirely on the two crucial fragments of the Elixir of Life he had just collected. The first was the World Tree Fragment, obtained from the 50th floor boss, and the second was the Spring Water of the Echoing Forest from the 75th floor. He only needed one more ingredient to complete the Elixir of Life and cure his mother's terminal illness. He swore that he would fully clear this dungeon upon his next return. Concluding his journey, Jinwoo returned to the city from the dungeon. He checked the system and saw that the final ingredient required for the elixir was the purified blood of the Demon King. Next time, he would prepare meticulously to secure it. Thanks to grinding in the Demon Castle, he had leveled up tremendously, yet his official hunter rank remained an E. This low rank restricted Jinwoo from participating in high-level dungeon raids. Realizing he could not hide his true abilities forever, Jinwoo decided to stop concealing his power and go in for an official rank reevaluation. The following morning, Jinwoo arrived at the Hunter Association to participate in the reevaluation process. A manager from the White Tiger Guild was present, scouting to see if there were any promising new hunters. The sudden appearance of Jinwoo made the manager gasp in absolute shock. He immediately made a phone call to Baek Yoonho, reporting that Jinwoo had arrived for a reevaluation. This information caught Yoonho completely off guard. He immediately set off for the association, knowing he could not afford to miss this golden opportunity to bring Jinwoo into his guild. Jinwoo was brought to the waiting area outside the testing room alongside two middle-aged men. One of them was extremely nervous, hoping for a high rank to earn enough money to support his wife and children. The other man encouraged him, saying that getting anything above E rank was enough to be recruited by major guilds. Hearing this, Jinwoo felt very nostalgic, remembering when he was just a pathetically weak E rank hunter. Shortly after, Jinwoo was called into the evaluation room. Just like his first time, he had to place his hand on a black crystal ball to see its reaction. Following the instructor's directions, Jinwoo began the evaluation, but after several minutes, the machine failed to display a result, only flashing an error message. The instructor assumed the machine was genuinely malfunctioning, but the second attempt yielded the exact same result. Her superior, noticing the evaluation was taking too long, went inside to check. When the staff reported a machine error, he did not believe it and personally oversaw the test. As expected, the machine still reported an error. However, the superior knew this was no ordinary malfunction. The truth was that Jinwoo's magical power had completely exceeded the device's measuring limit. He immediately confirmed that Jinwoo was officially the 10th S-rank hunter of the country. Meanwhile, Woo Jinchul was directing his subordinates to dissect the ant monsters recently captured on Jeju Island. The guildmaster of the Hunters Guild, Choi Jong-in, approached him to gather more information. During their conversation, Jong-in brought up the White Tiger Guild's Red Gate incident, mentioning that a mysterious hunter had participated in the raid and defeated the boss. Jong-in wanted to know who that person was, but Jinchul had no concrete information since he was not present until the very end. Suddenly, both men noticed a massive commotion in the waiting lobby. Assuming someone had just awakened with a high rank, they immediately headed over to investigate. Indeed, the crowd was buzzing about the sudden appearance of a person possessing immeasurable power. The head of the evaluation department was guiding Jinwoo through the procedures to officially recognize him as the nation's newest S-rank hunter. The White Tiger manager was anxiously waiting for Yoonho to arrive so they could pull Jinwoo into their guild. However, before Yoonho could appear, Choi Jong-in stepped into the lobby and approached Jinwoo. Seeing him, Jinwoo recognized him as the man standing at the pinnacle of fire magic. Through his discerning eyes, Jong-in recognized Jinwoo as an incredibly talented hunter, understanding why the crowd was so awestruck. Jong-in politely offered a greeting, but Jinwoo bluntly replied that he was very busy and had no time to chat. This response left Jong-in deeply embarrassed, as he had been flatly rejected before he could even start. He had clearly introduced himself as the Master of the Hunters Guild, but Jinwoo completely ignored it, making Jong-in feel he was being slightly delusional about his own authority. Jinwoo then vanished from the lobby in the blink of an eye, leading Jinchul to assume he was an assassin-class hunter. At that moment, White Tiger Guild Master Baek Yoonho finally arrived in a frantic rush, but he was too late to meet Jinwoo. Jong-in knew that the White Tiger headquarters was located quite far from the association. The fact that Yoonho had run here so fast that he was out of breath proved Jinwoo was an extremely valuable asset, prompting guilds to exert all their effort to recruit him. Naturally, Jong-in also entered the race to drag Jinwoo into the Hunters Guild. Yoonho was highly surprised to see Jong-in there. Even though they were masters of two massive guilds, they were not particularly close, and Yoonho absolutely did not want Jong-in sniffing around Jinwoo. That evening, Jinwoo went to the hospital to visit his mother. Due to her terminal illness, she remained in a deep, endless sleep, unable to wake up. Jinwoo promised her that if she just waited a little longer, he would definitely cure her. Stepping outside, Jinwoo was intercepted by Woo Jinchul from the Hunter Association. According to Jinchul, his duty was to monitor hunters and penalize those who broke the law. Hearing this, Jinwoo assumed he was being placed under association surveillance. However, Jinchul clarified he was only there to invite Jinwoo to meet a very important person. Immediately after, the association chairman, Go Gun-hee, appeared and greeted Jinwoo. This was an incredibly prominent figure, causing even Jinwoo's eyes to widen in surprise. He immediately agreed to have a conversation with the elderly man. The chairman first congratulated Jinwoo on being confirmed as an S-rank hunter, but noted that one more step was required to officially finalize the results. Jinwoo was puzzled as to why a re-evaluation was needed, and the chairman frankly admitted it was merely a stalling tactic to help him approach Jinwoo. He had met many high-ranking hunters before, but almost all of them rejected the association, choosing guilds for money and fame. The chairman then introduced Jinchul, pointing out he was only an A-rank hunter, and expressed his desire for Jinwoo to join the association. Gun-hee promised that if Jinwoo agreed, he would be guaranteed a crucial position of authority. Curious, Jinwoo asked why the chairman was trying so hard to recruit him. The old man explained that the true pillars supporting the nation were not the government, but the hunters themselves. Currently, the country had 5 major guilds existing in a delicate state of balance. If Jinwoo joined any of them, that balance would be shattered instantly. Therefore, the Hunter Association needed to act as a 6th faction to maintain equilibrium among the guilds. That was the primary reason the chairman personally came to invite Jinwoo into the association. Hearing this, Jinwoo felt the offer was actually quite tempting. Becoming a member of the association would guarantee his future advancement. Not to mention, Chairman Go held immense power and could easily influence the government. The man himself was the country's first ever S-rank hunter, though he was now retired. Despite the chairman being over 80 years old, Jinwoo sensed the old man was just as strong as a leveling player like himself. Jinwoo knew accepting this invitation would change his life, but ultimately, he respectfully declined the offer. Initially, the chairman assumed Jinwoo felt the compensation was too low. However, Jinwoo spoke plainly, stating his true goal was to dive into combat against monsters, and the dungeons were where he truly belonged. Looking into Jinwoo's unwavering eyes, the chairman knew the young man was not lying. His heart beat rapidly, echoing a deep, nostalgic yearning for his own youth. If only he could still fight, he desperately wished to stand shoulder to shoulder with Jinwoo on the battlefield. Understanding Jinwoo's fierce ambition, the chairman decided not to pressure him any further, allowing him to return home to his sister. The chairman felt a deep sense of disappointment regarding his own rapidly aging body. Seeing Jinwoo so young and vibrant made him intensely nostalgic for his past. Feeling melancholic, he invited his subordinate Jinchul out for a few drinks to ease his sadness. As for Jinwoo, he knew the association only managed low-rank dungeons. Because of this, he needed to seek out high-rank dungeons on his own to level up quickly and find the cure for his mother's illness. Following his battle with Jinwoo's father, Hwang Dong-soo had to be rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. His entire body was severely injured, yet his superior kept bothering him, demanding to know about Il-hwan's true strength. Dong-soo reluctantly admitted that Il-hwan was a monster, not a human. Hearing this, the superior ordered Dong-soo to report to the bureau immediately after his discharge. Currently, the bureau was dispatching agents to hunt down Il-hwan, though the superior doubted they could catch a man who had beaten Dong-soo to a pulp. This only fueled Dong-soo's bitter rage as he recalled Il-hwan's threat. The older man had warned him to never come near his family, swearing to hunt Dong-soo to the ends of the earth if he did. Furious, Dong-soo wanted to recover quickly and planned to bring numerous artifacts next time to avenge this humiliation. As Jinwoo knew, artifacts were high-tier equipment that were incredibly difficult to craft, meaning they were usually sold at auctions for astronomical prices. Currently, Jinwoo desperately needed various artifacts to prepare for his upcoming dungeon raids, but he lacked the necessary funds. Therefore, he considered selling the Orb of Avarice he had recently acquired. The orb was guaranteed to fetch a high price since it doubled the user's magical power. The only problem was that Jinwoo was officially still an E-rank hunter. Selling such a powerful item would undoubtedly spark an investigation into its origins. Thus, he decided to participate in an A-rank dungeon raid to legitimize his acquisition of the orb. While casually browsing the internet, Jinwoo found an open recruitment for minors to work in an A-rank dungeon. Meanwhile, Chairman Go was still actively investigating Jinwoo's background. 4 years ago, Jinwoo was just a naive teenager, looking entirely different from his currently handsome appearance. During his early days as a hunter, Jinwoo frequently sustained injuries and was constantly hospitalized. Despite this, he single-handedly covered his sister's tuition and his mother's medical bills, forcing the chairman to acknowledge him as an exemplary young man. Suddenly, Woo Jinchul reported that Jinwoo had just joined a raid team for the Hunters Guild. The chairman assumed Jinwoo desperately needed money to work for them, but the truth was that Jinwoo had only signed up for the mining team. At this moment, Jinwoo was present at the dungeon gate to accept his new job. Since it was his first day, the team captain encouraged him to stay calm and simply do his best to complete the assigned tasks. Jinwoo knew that in high-rank dungeon raids, the division of labor was strictly defined. The strike squad was tasked with hunting monsters, the mining team excavated magic crystals, and the cleanup crew collected monster carcasses. Although this required significant manpower, the profits from these expeditions were incredibly high. Jinwoo was absolutely certain that the main strike squad was currently hard at work inside the gate. As expected, Choi Jong-in was utilizing his fire magic to sweep through the monsters. With just a simple strike, the creatures were completely roasted. When the flames pushed back, he immediately directed the tank team to step in. Jong-in's ability allowed him to precisely control the temperature of his flames, so the monsters would not turn to ash. Cha Hae-in was also participating in this strike squad. Due to her highly sensitive sense of smell, she constantly had to cover her nose to avoid the burning stench. A short while later, the strike squad led by Jong-in emerged outside. Almost no one in his team was injured despite having just cleared an A-rank dungeon. Jinwoo concluded that this man was exceptionally strong and could not be underestimated. When Cha Hae-in appeared, Jinwoo was truly captivated by her graceful presence. He knew Cha Hae-in held the title of the Dancer and was the nation's 9th S-rank hunter. She was also the vice master of the Hunters Guild, constantly radiating an overwhelming aura that deeply impressed Jinwoo. Hae-in herself suddenly sensed a tremendously powerful presence, mistakenly thinking Chairman Go had come to visit. In reality, this aura belonged to Jinwoo, who intentionally hid behind the crowd to avoid being noticed. As soon as the strike squad departed, the miners began their work. Jinwoo and the others entered the dungeon to collect magic crystals and clean up monster corpses. Inside, Jinwoo instantly felt a massive wave of magical energy radiating from deep within. He deduced that this dungeon boss was even stronger than those in the demon castle, making him incredibly eager to test his strength against it. The others, unaware of Jinwoo's true power, looked down on him for being an E-rank. One fellow miner openly disrespected him, assuming he was a weakling. Jinwoo simply gave the man a light glare, nearly making him wet his pants in terror. Afterward, Jinwoo worked with intense dedication, thoroughly shocking the team captain. The captain could not believe an E-rank youth could work with such insane vigor, eventually assuming Jinwoo was a godsend miner. Even during the meal break, Jinwoo continued working enthusiastically. The captain allowed him to stay inside, but strictly warned him not to wander deep into the cavern. However, Jinwoo was merely waiting for everyone to leave. He immediately abandoned his mining tasks and headed straight for the boss's lair, eager to test his strength in the limited time he had. After running for a while, Jinwoo stood right before the boss's chamber. He intended to just take a quick peek rather than kill the boss, knowing that defeating it would close the gate and cause massive financial losses for the Hunters Guild. But just as he drew his weapon, Cha Hae-in unexpectedly appeared behind him, asking what he was doing there. Startled, Jinwoo panicked, unsure of how to explain himself. After a few seconds of thought, he lied, claiming he had gotten lost while working. Fortunately, Hae-in believed him and urged him to leave immediately, warning that the boss's room was ahead and extremely dangerous for a miner. Jinwoo realized this woman was far from simple. She had silently approached him, and he had completely failed to notice her presence. Jinwoo quickly turned around and apologized to Hae-in for causing trouble. Hae-in was quite surprised, noticing that the weapon he was just holding had vanished into thin air. As Jinwoo walked past her, Hae-in suddenly caught an irresistibly pleasant scent coming from him. She hastily told Jinwoo to stand still, stepping closer to take another sniff and double-check. It was true. Jinwoo did not emit the foul odor that other hunters typically had. Suspicious, she interrogated him, asking if he was truly a hunter. After inspecting his hunter license and confirming he was only an E-rank, she finally let him go. Hae-in assumed his low rank was the reason he lacked the bad smell and actually smelled wonderful. Upon returning to the excavation team, Jinwoo recounted his unexpected encounter with Cha Hae-in. Hearing this, the captain called Jinwoo incredibly lucky to get so close to her, noting that everyone else only dared to admire Hae-in from afar. The captain explained that she was a very kind-hearted person who sacrificed her rest time to patrol and ensure the boss did not harm the miners. Additionally, she was highly sensitive to the foul stench of other hunters, which was why she always covered her nose with a handkerchief around them. Jinwoo suddenly remembered Hae-in's reaction to him, proving he did not carry that hunter scent. This perfectly aligned with Baruka's previous claim that Jinwoo was not human. He began to seriously consider the possibility that he was truly a player of the system. However, What exactly a player was in this context remained a mystery he could not yet unravel. At the end of the workday, the captain paid Jinwoo his wages and thanked him, acknowledging that the team finished early entirely because of his hard work. The captain had been doing this job for a long time but had never met anyone as strong as Jinwoo. He eagerly wanted to permanently recruit Jinwoo into the excavation team, promising a highly lucrative salary. However, Jinwoo politely declined, stating he only did this during his free time. Seeing this, the captain pleaded with Jinwoo to help them for just one more day, as the second team would be handling 2 A and C rank gates tomorrow. Surprised that the Hunters Guild possessed 2 strike squads capable of handling A-rank dungeons, Jinwoo agreed out of curiosity. Thrilled, the captain promised to pay him double for his efforts. That evening, Cha Hae-in called the guild manager to request a background check on a man named Sung Jin-woo from the excavation team. The manager revealed that Guildmaster Choi Jong-in had also requested an investigation into the exact same person. Curiously, all detailed information regarding Jinwoo was being strictly classified by the Hunter Association. Hae-in felt a bit disappointed that she could not learn more about him. Recalling his strange actions inside the dungeon, the fact that his records were hidden, and that her guildmaster was secretly investigating him, she concluded that Jinwoo was hiding a massive secret. Furthermore, despite having met countless hunters, she had never encountered anyone who smelled as pleasant as him. The following morning, Jinwoo arrived at the C-rank gate with the excavation team. Looking at them, he nostalgically recalled his former teammates, who were just as kind-hearted as this crew. Because the strike squad had already cleared the dungeon, Jinwoo immediately got to work. Thanks to his immense stamina, the tasks were completed far earlier than scheduled. During their lunch break, the captain decided to pay Jinwoo 5 times the agreed amount since they had plenty of time to rest before the A-rank gate that afternoon. Right then, the strike squad captain, Ki-hoon, approached the miners. Since his team porter could not make it, Ki-hoon wanted to borrow someone from the excavation crew, promising a high-hazard pay for the dangerous job. Because the surrounding workers were all low-rank hunters, no one volunteered, knowing full well the terrifying dangers of an A-rank dungeon. Assuming there were no takers, Ki-hoon was surprised when Jinwoo raised his hand and accepted the job. His colleagues urgently warned him that no amount of money was worth risking his life. However, Jinwoo calmly replied that he was a resilient guy who was not afraid of death. Upon checking his credentials, Ki-hoon discovered Jinwoo was only an E rank. Nevertheless, feeling that Jinwoo was highly dependable, Ki-hoon officially accepted him into the team. When Jinwoo returned to the A-rank gate, he noticed it had grown significantly larger than the previous day. Ki-hoon reassured him, stating the guild would never assign an overly dangerous gate to a reserve squad, telling Jinwoo to rest easy. Jinwoo observed that the strike squad consisted of 6 A-rank and 3 B-rank hunters. He believed that in any other guild, this powerful lineup would never be relegated to a reserve team, proving just how formidable the Hunters Guild truly was. Shortly after, the hunters entered the dungeon with Jinwoo acting as their porter. Inside, he noticed the magical flow felt weaker than yesterday. Unexplainably, he began to feel an ominous premonition, identical to the sinister sensation he had right before being trapped in the Red Gate. Noticing his tension, a female hunter reassured him that the strong members would protect him as long as he stayed out of the way. Meanwhile, Ki-hoon felt immense pressure to execute this raid perfectly, as a flawless record would greatly boost his standing in the guild. Suddenly, the entire squad sensed danger and instantly shifted into combat formations, surprising Jinwoo with their highly disciplined readiness. Moments later, a pack of wild dogs lunged from the shadows to attack the hunters. Because these were merely weak, C-rank monsters, the squad dispatched them swiftly and efficiently. From the tanks to the assassins and mages, everyone acted with incredible speed, wiping out the beasts in no time. However, they were thoroughly puzzled as to why ordinary wild dogs would appear in an A-rank dungeon. Jinwoo, noticing collars around their necks, deduced that someone was deliberately breeding these creatures as hunting hounds. True to his ominous feeling, deafening noises echoed from deep within the cavern as a massive horde of monsters emerged from the darkness. A massive army of high orcs formed a disciplined battle line to confront the hunters. The vanguard leader let out a deafening roar, commanding his troops to attack. One monster hurled a heavy spear directly at Ki-hoon, forcing him to block with his shield. The impact was so devastatingly powerful that it instantly cracked the shield. A tank in the team attempted to use a taunt skill, but it proved completely ineffective against them. The high orcs then leaped high into the air, targeting the fragile hunters in the back line. Fortunately, the squad possessed a highly skilled fire mage who unleashed a blast to repel the first attacker. However, these monsters possessed extreme magic resistance, making his spell feel like a mere insect bite. Another mage used binding magic to lock a target in place, but the monstrous orc slowly pushed forward, nearly breaking her hold. Seeing this, the fire mage consumed a massive amount of mana to summon two fiery warriors, sending them into close combat. On the other side, a female fighter was battling fiercely when an orc suddenly slammed her violently into a wall. Due to her severe injuries, a teammate had to cover her while calling for the healer. However, the sheer number of monsters kept everyone overwhelmed, preventing any rescue attempts. Ki-hun frantically ordered the team to scatter and avoid being encircled, knowing these high orcs possessed physical strength equal to A-rank hunters. As expected, a B-rank hunter faltered and had his arm brutally severed by a monster. The female mage rushed to provide cover, using crowd control magic, while the healer quickly moved in to regenerate the man's severed arm. Unfortunately, the mage was swiftly overpowered and knocked down, leaving her and the healer as the next victims. As the healer hopelessly accepted her fate, Jinwoo finally decided to act. He activated his stealth skill, appearing silently behind the attacking monster to put it in a chokehold before effortlessly twisting its head off, leaving the healer in utter shock. Jinwoo then dashed across the battlefield, systematically severing the tendons and limbs of various high orcs. This drastically slowed their movements, allowing the other hunters to easily execute the crippled monsters without expending much energy. Jinwoo knew an outsider like him should not interfere, but he could not simply stand by and watch them die. Thanks to Jinwoo's covert assistance, the battle became significantly easier. The Hunters Guild squad regained their momentum, steadily eliminating the monsters one by one until only the vanguard leader remained to face Ki-hun. Jinwoo casually crippled its movements, granting Ki-hun a massive advantage in their duel. After a grueling exchange, Ki-hun finally delivered the finishing blow, ending the first battle with 0 fatal casualties. The team considered this a sheer miracle, but Ki-hun was deeply suspicious. He noticed the monster's movements had inexplicably slowed down and asked who cast the debuff, only to realize no one in their team had the necessary assassin skills. Only the female mage had noticed Jinwoo using stealth to help them, but she chose to keep his secret hidden. The team then debated whether to retreat or press forward. Some members argued that they should retreat, as continuing would be too dangerous. They believed the best course of action was to exit, regroup, and plan their next move. Hearing this, Ki-hun stood hesitantly, thinking for a long time. This was his first raid as the squad captain, and he did not want to return empty-handed. Jinwoo knew Ki-hun desperately wanted to clear the dungeon, but he hoped the captain would make a wise choice. Ultimately, Ki-hun decided to retreat to ensure the safety of his entire team. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, as no one wanted to fight anymore. However, just as they reached the gate, a powerful barrier materialized, completely blocking the group's exit. The female mage recognized this as an extremely high-level barrier that would require a vast amount of time to break. She realized that to cast such advanced magic, the enemy must possess an incredibly powerful mage. This confirmed that retreating was the right decision, as the squad lacked the strength to clear the dungeon. Suddenly, a terrifying surge of magical energy emanated from the dungeon boss, sending shivers down everyone's spines. They had to accelerate their efforts to break the barrier and escape, though Jinwoo remained entirely unaffected by the magical pressure. While attempting to dispel the barrier, the mages were afflicted by a curse that caused severe internal bleeding. It turned out the barrier was merely a trap set by the monsters to weaken the mages. Meanwhile, a massive horde of monsters surrounded the hunters, leaving them with no way to escape. Counting briefly, they saw at least 50 muscular high orcs encircling them. Knowing that fighting now would mean total annihilation, Ki-hun bravely stepped forward to face their leader. Initially, the monster spoke in an incomprehensible language. However, the dungeon boss, named Kargalgan, possessed the body of his subordinate to communicate. Kargalgan stated that he had always wanted to meet humans, and now finally had the chance. He proudly declared himself the great shaman of the orcs and the creator of the barrier. Ki-hun asked if there was anyone stronger than him in the dungeon, but the monster laughed loudly, asserting he was the absolute strongest here. He then gave Ki-hoon's squad two choices: die at the hands of his soldiers or drag themselves to meet him personally. Ki-hoon chose to meet him, prompting the soldiers to obediently pull back. Before moving, Ki-hoon revealed his plan to Jinwoo. The moment the boss appeared, his team would launch a surprise attack to distract him, breaking his concentration so he could no longer maintain the barrier. He begged Jinwoo to use that opportunity to escape and contact the main Hunters Guild strike squad. Jinwoo understood that Ki-hoon was preparing to risk his life, intending to close the gate permanently rather than escape. The female mage even left her final will in a notebook, hoping Jinwoo could escape safely and deliver it to her family. The entire squad was ready to stay behind and fulfill their duty to close the gate. This sacrifice reminded Jinwoo of the despair he felt during the double dungeon incident. Ultimately, Jinwoo silently held onto the notebook, hoping everything would turn out fine. Meanwhile, Cha Hae-in had arrived at the A-rank gate looking for Jinwoo. The excavation team captain informed her that Jinwoo had taken the job of carrying luggage for the strike squad. Hae-in was extremely surprised that Jinwoo had entered the gate yet again. Inside, the hunters marched straight to the boss's chamber. The boss's subordinates lined the path to show off their power, and the boss praised the hunters for their bravery in coming here. Hae-in wondered why an E-rank hunter like Jinwoo would act as a porter in an A-rank dungeon. People only had one life, so why was he being so reckless? Remembering how he stood before the boss room yesterday with a weapon, she found him highly suspicious and decided to enter the dungeon to investigate. However, Hae-in had not brought her combat gear or weapons. She asked the excavation captain if he had any usable weapons, but he only had a pickaxe. Initially, Hae-in considered going in bare-handed, but she eventually borrowed the pickaxe as a makeshift weapon. Meanwhile, the monsters inside slammed their weapons against the ground, threatening the hunters. Jinwoo knew a bloody battle was imminent. There were hundreds of monsters in the room, and if they escaped, it would be a catastrophe. The most dangerous among them were the 4 giant bodyguards protecting their king. Their aura was far superior to the regular orc soldiers. The dungeon boss then ordered his troops to stop, while Ki-hoon prepared for a surprise attack to defeat the boss and close the gate. Suddenly, the boss unleashed an overwhelmingly powerful wave of magic that shattered the hunters' will to fight. Compared to him, they were practically insects with no chance of winning. Trembling, Ki-hoon asked why the boss had brought them here. The boss cruelly revealed that his goal was to use them as entertainment, torturing the hunters to amuse his soldiers. Ki-hoon realized his team's initial resolve was completely meaningless. Their lives were nothing more than toys to this monster. The boss also noticed that Jinwoo was not an ordinary human, which pleased him, as playing with a strong opponent was much more entertaining. Despite feeling absolute despair, Ki-hoon stubbornly urged his team to attack. Unsurprisingly, everyone was too terrified to move. Only Ki-hoon charged forward with his weapon, aiming straight for the boss. However, the monster used a protection spell, creating a massive ice wall that completely blocked Ki-hoon and forced him back. The boss then cast anti-gravity magic, lifting Ki-hoon to the ceiling and tossing him around like a rag doll. He repeated this spell multiple times, leaving Ki-hoon completely defenseless. His teammates watched in horror, fearing Ki-hoon would not survive much longer. Seeing this, Jinwoo decided to step in and save the captain's life. One of the boss's bodyguards tried to test Jinwoo, but Jinwoo easily lifted him and smashed him into the ceiling. Jinwoo knew that as an outsider, he should not interfere with the Hunters Guild's business, but he could not simply stand by and watch them die. Therefore, he asked for Ki-hoon's permission to wipe out all the monsters in the dungeon. Left with no other choice, Ki-hoon begged Jinwoo to save his team. The dungeon boss was furious seeing Jinwoo mimic his move, releasing a massive wave of magical energy as a direct challenge. Jinwoo admitted that this was the first time he had faced someone with such an overwhelming aura, but unfortunately, the boss had zero chance of winning this battle. With that said, Jinwoo immediately summoned his shadow army to assert his dominance. Meanwhile, outside, Woo Jinchul arrived at the gate to assess the situation and investigate why Jinwoo had been working as a laborer for 2 consecutive days. The excavation team captain informed Jinchul that Jinwoo was currently carrying luggage inside the gate. A fellow worker added that Jinwoo had a very terrifying glare, leaving Jinchul suspicious as to why someone so powerful would do menial labor in such a dangerous place. He hoped Jinwoo would become more compliant once he officially became an S rank. Suddenly, a terrifying burst of magical energy erupted from the dungeon, making Jinchul feel as if his body was being torn apart. He immediately ordered his subordinates to remeasure the gate's magical power. Inside the dungeon, Cha-haen arrived at the bloody battlefield littered with monster corpses left behind by the strike squad. She could not understand how they managed to defeat such powerful creatures. Furthermore, the massive surge of magic that just emanated from the boss proved the entire squad's lives were in grave danger. Knowing time was running out, she quickly rushed deeper into the dungeon to save them. At the same time, the dungeon boss openly mocked Jinwoo, looking down on him for daring to challenge his vast army with just a few soldiers. However, this time, Jinwoo activated his Domain of the Monarch skill to drastically boost the strength of his shadow soldiers. This was a special ability he acquired after clearing the 70th floor of the Demon Castle. Furthermore, the combat prowess of the shadow soldiers had increased immensely after their continuous battles in that previous dungeon. The strike squad could not believe Jinwoo possessed such terrifying magic, as even the strongest summoner could only call forth one or two creatures, never an entire army. Immediately after, the bloodbath between the two forces officially began. Iron immediately used his taunt skill, swinging his heavy axe to blast away the charging monsters. Meanwhile, Igris gracefully swung his sword, effortlessly slicing dozens of orcs into pieces. On his end, Jinwoo utilized an assassin's speed to decapitate the enemies and cut them down. Watching his fluid movements, the hunters thought he looked exactly like a dancer. Haen wondered why someone with such incredible skills would work as a mere porter. Jinwoo noted that his soldiers were only as strong as B-rank hunters. It took 4 or 5 resurrections for one soldier to defeat a single orc. To preserve mana, he considered reducing the number of active soldiers. The dungeon boss then unleashed the Song of the Fire Dragon, incinerating many of Jinwoo's soldiers and mocking them as a bunch of scarecrows. Jinwoo, however, considered the boss to be delusional, as his shadow soldiers possessed infinite regeneration. In response, the boss used the Song of Protection to drop a massive ice boulder directly where Jinwoo stood. This was followed by a barrage of gravity magic controlling massive rocks to crush Jinwoo and his army. The monster declared he would attack relentlessly until Jinwoo's mana was completely depleted. He then cast the Song of Blazing Fire, creating pillars of flame that incinerated numerous shadow soldiers, followed by waves of fire crashing toward Jinwoo from both sides. Jinwoo realized the boss was using wide-area magic to prevent anyone from approaching while sitting safely in one spot. Outside the gate, Jinchul's team finished measuring the dungeon's energy and discovered that its power was bordering on an S-rank level. Hearing this, Jinchul instructed someone to contact the Hunters Guild Master to deliver the news, while he prepared to enter the gate to support the guild's hunters. Inside, the tide of the battle seemed to favor the dungeon boss, who firmly believed that Jinwoo running out of mana was only a matter of time. However, Jinwoo chugged a mana potion to show the boss the true power of a necromancer. He then used shadow extraction to turn the fallen orc soldiers into his own troops, warning the boss that he too would soon become a subordinate. Witnessing Jinwoo's terrifying power, the boss finally began to tremble in fear. He suspected that Jinwoo was actually an absolute ruler from ancient legends. The boss suddenly recalled a mysterious voice commanding him to exterminate humans, wondering why he had awakened in a place like this. Brushing the thought aside, he decided to just follow the order to kill the humans. He stood up and commanded his 4 bodyguards to annihilate everyone in their path. Meanwhile, Choi Jong-in received the urgent report from Jinchul's team. Initially thinking Ki-hoon's squad could easily clear the dungeon, Jong-in was horrified to learn the gate was now near S-rank in power. Fearing a dungeon break similar to the Jeju Island incident, Jong-in rapidly mobilized all the A-rank hunters of his guild to counter the impending disaster. He planned to contact the White Tiger and Reaper guilds for backup in the worst-case scenario, though he prayed it would not escalate that far. Back in the dungeon, Jinwoo's army had regained the momentum. Igris alone was holding off 2 of the boss's bodyguards simultaneously. Tank soon joined the fray to assist Igris, successfully executing the final bodyguard. Jinwoo confidently declared that his knights were far superior to the boss's elite guards. The Hunters Guild members attempted to assist Jinwoo, but the boss cast a spell that inflicted them with a potent poison. He arrogantly stated that weaklings were not allowed to participate in the battle, and that he would personally eliminate Jinwoo. With that, the boss unleashed a barrage of curse magic, aimed at reducing Jinwoo's stats. Unfortunately for the monster, Jinwoo's body possessed passive resistance to both poison and curses, rendering the attacks useless and forcing the boss on the defensive. Seizing the opportunity, Jinwoo commanded his shadow mages to prepare a decisive strike. Utilizing the Orb of Avarice to amplify their fire magic, the flames turned a brilliant blue, shattering the boss's shield and hitting him directly, causing a massive explosion that shook the entire dungeon. Just then, Cha Hae-in arrived at the scene, standing in absolute awe at Jinwoo's battle. She was relieved to see her guild members were still alive, though none of them could comprehend the clash happening before their eyes. Enraged by Jinwoo's attack, the boss cast numerous enhancement spells, expanding his body to a gigantic size in an attempt to crush Jinwoo. Jinwoo easily dodged, casually remarking that he had never liked fighting giant enemies. Refusing to yield, the boss continuously bombarded Jinwoo with the Song of the Fire Dragon, casting it in rapid succession until both his and Jinwoo's soldiers were vaporized together. Believing he had finally incinerated Jinwoo, the boss let his guard down. However, Jinwoo flanked him from behind, closing in with his dagger and slashing the monster, blinding him in one eye. Jinwoo noted that giant enemies were always slow and easy targets, and a mage stripped of his guards was just easy prey for an assassin. Desperate, the boss switched to the Song of Blazing Fire, intending to turn the entire dungeon into a sea of flames. Jinwoo used his immense speed to dodge the attacks and threw both his daggers at the monster. Knowing small weapons could not fell a giant, he pulled down a massive chain hanging from the wall, hurled it at the boss, and wrapped it tightly around him to easily bring the giant crashing down. Wu Jinchul finally arrived and was equally astounded by Jinwoo's overwhelming power. Although Jinchul came to provide support, everyone seemed safe while Jinwoo was busy dispatching the monster alone. Cha Hae-in noticed Jinwoo fought like an assassin, but could also use summoning magic like a mage, prompting her to ask Jinchul for information about him. Jinchul admitted he only knew a little about the man and was entirely unaware of the true extent of his abilities. Jinwoo knew that once a mage lost his guards, his life was firmly in the hands of his opponent. However, the boss stubbornly unleashed his final spells in a desperate attempt to fight back. This time, Jinwoo summoned the boss's own 3 bodyguards to beat him into submission, even letting one of them deliver the killing blow. The dungeon boss was officially dead, but instead of collecting the dropped items, Jinwoo used shadow extraction to turn the monster into his soldier, leaving Hae-in and Jinchul completely astounded. Now a loyal subordinate, the creature obediently followed commands. Jinwoo named this new warrior Tusk. Tusk was granted the rank of Elite Knight, a grade Jinwoo had never seen before. Extracting an A-rank boss yielded incredibly valuable results, not to mention the massive army of orcs he also acquired. Wu Jinchul's team approached, causing Jinwoo to worry since he had just used his extraction skill right in front of them. The hunters immediately asked Jinwoo what kind of power that was. Fortunately, Jinchul stepped in and used his authority to defuse the situation. He declared that everything concerning Jinwoo today was strictly classified and urged them not to leak any information about what had transpired. Jinchul reminded them that Jinwoo had just used his S-rank power to save their lives, so they should allow him to leave in peace. Before exiting the dungeon, Ki-hun stepped forward to speak. He stated he would not ask why Jinwoo entered the gate disguised as a porter, but he acknowledged that the entire squad survived solely because of his intervention. The team then bowed deeply in immense gratitude. Jinwoo suddenly remembered the notebook containing the final will and politely returned it to the female mage. Meanwhile, someone in the group questioned why Cha Hae-in was carrying a miner's pickaxe. This completely flustered the S-rank hunter, making her feel incredibly awkward and eccentric in the eyes of everyone present. The entire incident within the dungeon was reported back to Choi Jong-in. He realized that the Hunters Guild was now heavily indebted to Jinwoo for saving the lives of their elite members. Through the reports, Jong-in also grasped the extent of Jinwoo's capabilities, such as possessing superhuman speed and the ability to summon dead monsters. Jong-in curiously asked his subordinate who they thought was stronger between him and Jinwoo. Naturally, the answer was obvious, as Jong-in could never single-handedly conquer an A-rank dungeon the way Jinwoo just did. This stark realization made Jong-in feel deeply embarrassed about his own ultimate weapon nickname that others constantly praised him with. After Jinwoo returned, Yu Jinho immediately arranged to meet him at a cafe, stating he had something extremely important to discuss. Meanwhile, the Hunter Association was hosting a debut event for a young man named Lee Min-sung. He was originally a famous actor, but now wanted to transition into becoming a hunter, drawing massive attention from reporters. Choi Jong-in and Baek Yoon-ho also quickly arrived at the association. Both guildmasters were there because a certain individual was getting reevaluated today, and they both desperately wanted to recruit him. Seeing them, the press rushed over to interview them, assuming they were there to scout Lee Min-sung. Hearing this, Yoonho bluntly stated he had no idea who Min-sung was. Jong-in added that he heard the actor had already signed a contract with the Reaper Guild anyway. Disappointed, the reporters dispersed, realizing there was no sensational story to write. Yoonho had already heard the story of Jinwoo assisting the Hunters Guild inside the A-rank gate. Previously, Jinwoo had also saved 2 members of Yoonho's White Tiger Guild during the Red Gate incident. Therefore, both men were here with the sole purpose of fighting over Jinwoo for their respective guilds. Neither of the 2 guildmasters was willing to back down, resulting in them standing outside the association doors and bickering with each other. The Reaper Guild master saw them and mistakenly assumed they were fighting over Lee Min-sung. However, both Yoonho and Jong-in immediately snapped back, fiercely declaring they had absolutely zero interest in that celebrity. Jinwoo had also arrived at the association for his official reevaluation, completely confused as to why there were so many reporters swarming the area. It turned out it was the exact same day Lee Min-sung was getting evaluated, attracting a massive crowd of fans. Before the cameras, Min-sung dramatically proclaimed his determination to fulfill his duties as a hunter. However, the truth was that he had already been evaluated beforehand, resulting in an A rank, and had secretly signed a 2-year contract with the Reaper Guild. Min-sung was actually a notorious playboy embroiled in numerous personal scandals. His entire plan was to act as a hunter for a short period to achieve some fake accolades, then return to the entertainment industry with his reputation completely washed clean. Right at that moment, Jinwoo tried to enter the building, but an arrogant reporter blocked his path. Suddenly, the association chairman appeared and firmly stated that Jinwoo was his esteemed guest. He also sternly warned the reporters that he did not want any press conferences happening during this time. Seeing that he was no longer the center of attention, Min-sung felt deeply humiliated in front of the media. Trying to save face, he stomped over to Woo Jinchul and demanded to be let inside for his evaluation. In response, Jinchul simply removed his sunglasses and shot him a terrifying glare, nearly making the spoiled actor wet his pants in sheer terror. Jinwoo found it slightly strange that 2 major guildmasters were present at the association today. The chairman quickly informed him that they were only there to target him. After all, it had been 2 full years since an S-rank hunter had awakened in the country. Before the official evaluation, the chairman wanted to personally verify Jinwoo's abilities. Hearing this, Jinwoo summoned a single shadow soldier, mildly startling the evaluation staff. However, the chairman knew Jinwoo's capabilities went far beyond that. Consequently, Jinwoo unleashed a colossal wave of magical energy, terrifying not only the chairman but also the 2 guild masters waiting outside. Jinwoo casually revealed that he could summon hundreds of these soldiers for battle. This staggering number completely overwhelmed the 2 guild masters, leaving them in absolute awe of his power. Not wanting to waste any more time, the chairman quickly finalized the evaluation and handed Jinwoo his new hunter license. Now, officially an S-rank hunter, Jinwoo could freely sell his high-tier items without raising any suspicion. He planned to use the acquired funds to buy better equipment and continue conquering the Demon Castle. The chairman was incredibly eager to see what achievements Jinwoo would accomplish as an S-rank hunter. Meanwhile, the 2 guild masters were eagerly waiting by the door for a private conversation with him. However, Jinwoo flatly rejected them, stating he had too many things to do at the moment. As he stepped outside, Jinwoo was accidentally caught on camera by the swarming reporters. On another front, Song Yi alerted Gina that her older brother was appearing on a live broadcast. The news reported that Jinwoo had officially become the country's 10th S-rank hunter, leaving Gina in absolute shock. The miner who had worked alongside Jinwoo could not believe the young man was actually an S rank rather than an E rank. Jinwoo's close friend Ju-hee, along with the older hunters from his past, were overjoyed to see his incredible progression. Only Cha Hae-in found it entirely unsurprising, having already witnessed his true monstrous strength firsthand. Furthermore, Jinwoo's sudden appearance in the media caused the reporters to completely abandon Lee Min-sung's press conference. Meanwhile, Yoo Jin-ho apologized to his father for failing to recruit Jinwoo. Jinwoo had previously explained that joining an existing guild would only chain him down, as he had much work to do to grow stronger. If Jin-ho wanted to stand by his side, he had to join a brand new guild founded by Jinwoo himself. Hearing this, his father angrily called him a selfish fool. Jinho had confidently promised to bring Jinwoo to their family guild, yet now he wanted to abandon them, which was unacceptable. Facing this harsh reprimand, Jinho reflected on all the dangerous raids he had shared with Jinwoo. After careful thought, he firmly apologized to his father and chose to follow his boss. Seeing his unyielding resolve, the old man reluctantly permitted Jinho to leave, demanding he prove his determination. Jinwoo was still surrounded by aggressive reporters determined to secure an interview. Baek Yoonho and Choi Jong-in decided to help escort Jinwoo all the way home. However, Jinwoo simply did a light leap and instantly vanished from the crowd, leaving Yoonho completely astounded. His speed was so incredibly fast that the naked eye could not even track it. Yoonho realized that Jinwoo had undeniably grown even stronger since their last encounter at the Red Gate. After escaping the media, Jinwoo headed straight to the artifact auction district. He was actively looking to purchase items that could protect him from the intense heat inside the demon castle. Hearing Jinwoo's request, the shop owner introduced a cloak and a few rings. Jinwoo found these items quite appealing, but their prices were far too high for his current budget. The owner playfully offered that if Jinwoo could break the magically reinforced display glass, he could have the items for free. Taking it seriously, Jinwoo prepared to throw a devastating punch. Fortunately, the owner frantically stopped him, admitting he was merely joking. Jinwoo went to browse other items, leaving behind a subtle crack on the reinforced glass that left the owner in disbelief. Jinwoo then inquired about a basic dagger and was shocked to learn it cost a staggering 100 million. Despite its stats being equal to his Kasaka's Venom Fang, he realized he had more than enough money to buy gear without selling the Orb of Avarice. That evening, Baek Yoonho sat alone, deeply pondering Jinwoo's true strength. Earlier that day, Yoonho had witnessed the massive wave of magical power overflowing from the evaluation room, combined with Jinwoo's extraordinary physical capabilities. During the Red Gate incident, Jinwoo was clearly not this overwhelmingly powerful. Connecting the dots, Yoonho began to suspect that Jinwoo was not simply a reawakened hunter. Instead, he theorized that Jinwoo possessed the unprecedented ability to continuously grow stronger over time. Being constantly harassed by reporters had left Gina feeling incredibly frustrated. Fortunately, they did not show up today, allowing her to attend school in peace. Jinwoo assumed the Hunter Association had intervened to chase the media away. Taking this opportunity, he reminded Gina that he would be away from home for about a week. Just as he finished speaking, Yoo Jinho knocked on the door, carrying a massive pile of luggage. Jinwoo quickly introduced Jinho to his sister as a colleague, joining him on his business trip. He discreetly signaled Jinho to play along so Jinho would not ask questions. In reality, Jinho had run away from his family home, leading him to crash at Jinwoo's place for the night. Although the media had stopped tailing him, Jinwoo remained worried that they might return and cause trouble for his sister. To ensure her safety, he summoned his high orc bodyguards to assign them a mission. Originally, there were 4 elite guards, but since Jinwoo had brutally smashed one into the ceiling during their battle, he could only extract 3 of them. Nevertheless, these shadow soldiers were already incredibly powerful, so he confidently delegated the tasks. He ordered the bodyguards to secretly watch over Gina and keep her safe. Meanwhile, he deployed the rest of his shadow infantry to patrol the surrounding areas and protect the city from the shadows. Later that very night, a terrifying development occurred across the ocean. The monstrous ants residing on Jeju Island had finally evolved enough to cross the sea and fly directly toward the mainland. The following day, Jinho shared that he was fully determined to leave his family and build his own career. He also asked where Jinwoo was going for an entire week. Naturally, Jinwoo kept it vague, stating he was undergoing special training to increase his strength. A short while later, their car arrived at a massive tower, which served as the entrance to the Demon Castle dungeon. Jinwoo bid farewell to Jinho and prepared for his raid. This time, Jinwoo had equipped himself with a wind attribute cloak and a water attribute ring. With these 2 high-tier artifacts, he was completely immune to the intense, scorching heat of the Demon Castle. Upon entering, the system issued a new quest to Jinwoo. His objective was to collect the soul of the final boss on the 100th floor, the Demon King Baran. The rewards for completing this monumental task included a runestone and a class-specific skill called Shadow Exchange. Finding these rewards extremely enticing, Jinwoo felt a surge of excitement and motivation. He immediately used the teleportation circle to transport himself directly to the 76th floor and began his relentless sweep through the upper levels. Meanwhile, Yu Jinho's father, who had appeared completely healthy, suddenly collapsed unconscious out of nowhere. Panic-stricken, Jinho's mother immediately rushed him to the hospital for emergency medical treatment. Back in the dungeon, Jinwoo had arrived on the 76th floor and immediately encountered a gigantic demon. He summoned his newest soldier Tusk and temporarily handed him the Orb of Avarice to test his capabilities. Instantly, Tusk expanded his body, matching the exact size of the towering monster before him. Seeing a challenger, the demon let out a deafening roar to show off its strength. However, Tusk simply cast a fire spell, using the orb to massively amplify the flames. The fire turned a blinding blue and blasted toward the monster, violently shaking the entire space. After the devastating attack, the giant demon was completely vaporized, leaving only its legs behind. Realizing this spell could obliterate a massive area, Jinwoo decided he needed to be very careful whenever using it. After learning of his father's collapse, Jinho rushed to the hospital to visit him. His mother lied, claiming he was simply overworked, hoping to spare her son from worrying. In reality, Jinho's father had contracted eternal slumber, the exact same terminal illness that had forced Jinwoo's mother into a coma for years. Initially, the patient experiences sudden bouts of sleepiness until they eventually fall asleep and never wake up. The doctor explained that this disease afflicted individuals with weak magic resistance who were exposed to magical energy over prolonged periods. The couple was startled, remembering that Jinho was an active hunter. However, Jinho's father knew the entire world was saturated with magic, not just his son. He felt a deep sense of despair, realizing that his weak resistance meant the world was slowly rejecting him. Later that afternoon, a dire situation unfolded in Japan. While on a routine patrol, two Japanese hunters suddenly encountered a winged ant that had flown all the way from Jeju Island. Inside the demon castle, Jinwoo divided his shadow soldiers, spreading them across the dungeon to hunt monsters autonomously. Whenever they found an entry permit, they brought it to Jinwoo, allowing him to ascend the tower at incredible speed. However, upon reaching the 80th floor, his progress drastically slowed. His mana was draining rapidly, indicating that his soldiers were being systematically destroyed. Jinwoo realized his orc squad had been completely wiped out. He reorganized his formation and analyzed the enemy's attack pattern. Noticing the enemy actively avoided Tusk, he deduced they possessed high intelligence and would target Tank's bear squad next. As expected, 4 demon knights intercepted the bears and annihilated them in seconds. Watching from the shadows, Jinwoo admitted his beast soldiers could not defeat these elites. He dispelled his stealth and stepped forward to face them directly. Jinwoo kicked the first demon knight, sending it flying a massive distance. The next 2 attempted a sneak attack, but were effortlessly sliced down. Only the final demon remained, trembling in visible fear. Jinwoo found this fascinating, wondering if dungeon monsters could truly feel terror. The last demon desperately swung its sword, but the attacks were completely useless, and Jinwoo easily captured it alive. Just as he prepared to deliver the final blow, a female voice suddenly begged for mercy. It turned out to be a female demon whose appearance was remarkably human, thoroughly surprising Jinwoo. He coldly stated her comrades died for daring to attack him. The girl explained they were simply knights assigned to protect her, and their deaths were acceptable as long as she survived. Hearing this, Jinwoo felt exasperated, wanting nothing to do with her. As Jinwoo turned to leave, the demon girl stealthily drew a short sword, attempting to stab him in the back. However, Tusk reacted instantly, casting a protection spell to shield his master. Shockingly, the girl shamelessly dropped to her knees again, pleading for her life. She promised to offer Jinwoo absolutely anything if he would just spare her. Jinwoo ordered Tusk to restrain her and demanded information regarding the floor entry permits. She revealed that her noble clan possessed the permits and he offered to guide Jinwoo to them. This made sense to Jinwoo, as he had slaughtered countless monsters on this floor without finding a single permit. Before moving, Jinwoo intimidatingly asked if she could truly be trusted. Genuinely terrified, she swore she was telling the truth. Jinwoo then promised that as long as he received the permit, he would not harm her clan. Jinwoo then asked the demon girl about her true identity and why she was here. Meanwhile, on another front, a winged ant had completely devastated a Japanese island, massacring all its inhabitants. Back with Jinwoo, the girl introduced herself as Esil, the eldest daughter of the Rodier clan. This was not what Jinwoo wanted to know. He thought he could extract different information from her compared to Baruka, but it seemed Essel was also being controlled by the system just like him. He asked if she heard any voices in her head commanding her to kill humans. She admitted hearing a different order, one that commanded her to protect her current location. Essel explained that she was originally in the demon realm, but one day she suddenly found herself in this place. Jinwoo pressed further, asking what she used to do in the demon realm. However, the system actively interfered with Essel, distorting her voice. Jinwoo only managed to hear that her clan had been gathering a massive army of demons to prepare for a war against a terrifyingly powerful enemy. Right after she said this, the system issued a warning that the information exceeded permitted limits, forcefully cutting off the communication and causing Essel to faint. With her unconscious, Jinwoo could not extract any more details from her. Concurrently, the Korean Hunter Association received intelligence regarding the winged monster that appeared on the island off the coast of Japan. The damage report revealed that nearly 300 civilians had lost their lives. Following the massacre, over 100 hunters were dispatched to exterminate the ant. Despite many casualties, an A-rank hunter finally managed to kill it. Hearing the report, Chairman Go concluded that this single monster was as strong as an A-rank hunter. He noted that the devastated island was only 120 kilometers away from Jeju Island. If the ants possessed the ability to fly, they could easily land on the southernmost parts of the mainland. Therefore, the chairman decided to contact Japan for assistance, while alerting neighboring countries to raise their alert levels. Knowing he had to act before more hunters perished, Chairman Go exercised his authority to officially announce the initiation of the 4th Jeju Island Reclamation Operation. Back in the dungeon, Essel was confused about her sudden fainting spell, but since her body had returned to normal, Jinwoo did not worry further. Essel then guided Jinwoo toward her clan castle. After walking for a while, the grand castle appeared before them. Upon their arrival, the father of Essel was horrified and fiercely scolded his daughter, as behind Jinwoo stood an innumerable army of soldiers hiding in the shadows. Assuming Jinwoo had deceived his daughter to conquer their castle, the clan leader ordered his troops to surround them. However, Jinwoo calmly clarified that his only goal was to obtain the floor entry permit. Knowing Jinwoo had already defeated the bosses on the 50th and 75th floors, the father realized his soldiers had no chance against such immense power. Left with no other choice, the clan leader handed over the permit, allowing Jinwoo to proceed to the 80th floor. He assumed Jinwoo would leave immediately after receiving the item, but Jinwoo then asked to borrow his daughter, which infuriated the father. Jinwoo quickly explained that he only needed Essel because she knew exactly where the permits for the upper floors were hidden, promising to guarantee her safety along the journey. Hearing this, the father finally agreed to let her go. Essel, feeling highly trusted by Jinwoo, was secretly delighted. Meanwhile, a Japanese hunter guild was dissecting the recently killed ant. Their guildmaster had accepted the request to participate in the Jeju Island raid alongside the Korean hunters. During this time, Jinwoo successfully reached the 90th floor. His strongest warriors, like Tank and Igris, had leveled up, and their combat power was now equivalent to A-rank and S-rank hunters. Essel carefully brought along gifts intended for the nobles on the upper floors, knowing they were powerful and hoping the gifts would facilitate negotiations for the permits. However, Jinwoo deemed the gifts completely unnecessary, stating he would use pure strength to force their compliance. He even promised to help the clan of Essel rise to the very top of the demon realm. Puzzled, Essel asked why Jinwoo had spared her clan. He simply replied that she had caught his eye, causing her to blush and mistakenly think he had romantic feelings for her. In reality, Jinwoo just felt that he was drawn to naive people like Jinho and Essel. Knowing he would soon face incredibly powerful enemies, Jinwoo permitted Essel to return home early. Hearing this, she protested, assuming Jinwoo viewed her as entirely useless. Truthfully, Jinwoo felt the journey was getting too dangerous and could not bear to drag her along. However, Essel firmly insisted on following him to witness his achievements. Impressed by her resolve, Jinwoo allowed her to continue accompanying him. Just as Essel had warned, the difficulty from the 90th floor onward increased drastically. The strength and sheer number of monsters far exceeded the lower floors. Despite this, Jinwoo and his shadow army steadily conquered each floor, driven by his desperate need to gather all the ingredients for the elixir of life. The Korean Hunter Association issued a summons for Cha Hae-in and Choi Jong-in to participate in the Jeju Island raid. White Tiger Guildmaster Baek Yoonho and all other S-rank hunters in the country were also called upon. Hearing the news, Hae-in assumed Jinwoo would be participating as well. Jong-in added that, this time, South Korea would be collaborating with Japanese hunters, as both nations were now within the ant strike range. The operation's start date was rapidly approaching, and a massive Japanese hunter guild was scheduled to fly to Korea that very day to discuss the tactical plans. After relentless effort, Jinwoo finally set foot on the 100th floor. The dungeon boss, the Demon King Baron, flew in on a wyvern, greeting Jinwoo with a violent gust of wind. Jinwoo knew the entity before him was Baran, the absolute strongest being in this dungeon. The Demon King radiated a terrifying aura, making Jinwoo question if he truly had the strength to win. Essel was so paralyzed by the murderous intent of Baran that she could not even move. Jinwoo calmly analyzed the situation, realizing the most troublesome factor was the wyvern granting Baran aerial superiority. Baran then used his power to conjure gates of hell, summoning a vast army of demon soldiers. Their overwhelming numbers quickly surrounded Jinwoo and Essel from all sides. As the demons charged simultaneously, Jinwoo immediately activated his domain of the monarch. Empowered by this skill, the Shadow Army emerged to clash against the demonic horde of Baran. The forces of Jinwoo quickly proved to be overwhelmingly superior to the demons. Tusk unleashed a massive wide-area fire spell that completely incinerated a huge chunk of the demon army. Essel knew that despite the immense power of Jinwoo, Demon King Baran was the absolute sovereign here, meaning this battle would not be easy for him. Shortly after, Baron gathered his energy and soared into the sky, causing the clouds to converge into a massive ring of lightning. Devastating bolts of lightning rained down, sweeping through the army of Jinwoo. Essel was caught within the blast radius, but Jinwoo quickly used his cloak to shield her from harm. He understood that the lightning was a wide-area attack with a stunning effect. Although Jinwoo could still resurrect his soldiers, continually tanking the lightning would rapidly deplete his mana. He knew he had to find a way to attack the wyvern and destroy its wings. Jinwoo used his stealth skill to close the distance, but Baron reacted with incredible reflexes, swinging his flaming sword and knocking Jinwoo back down to the ground. This was followed by a barrage of tracking lightning bolts, forcing Jinwoo to call upon Tusk and Igris for assistance. Receiving his master command, Tusk used enhanced fire magic to intercept and block the lightning of Baron. Meanwhile, Igris hurled his greatsword with deadly precision, cleanly decapitating the wyvern mid-air. Losing his mount, Baran was forced to crash land, initiating a brutal hand-to-hand duel with Jinwoo. Now, on equal footing, Jinwoo felt highly confident he could butcher the Demon King. The Japanese Draw Sword Guild had arrived at the Hunter Association for the strategy meeting. Chairman Go knew this was an ultra-massive guild boasting 11 S-rank hunters, making them the second-largest guild in all of Asia. Their guildmaster, Goto Ryuji, radiated an extraordinary aura. The Draw Sword Guild thanked the Korean hunters for their cooperation and shared the autopsy results of the ant provided by Korea. First, these ants reached full maturity immediately after hatching, but their maximum lifespan was only 1 year. Therefore, if they assassinated the ant queen, the remaining stragglers would naturally die off within a year. Second, the guild discovered that the ants were instinctively drawn to enemies possessing strong magical power. They planned to exploit this behavioral trait for their raid strategy. Chairman Go was deeply impressed by their thorough analysis. For this operation, the Draw Sword Guild decided to deploy 10 of their 11 S-rank hunters. The Japanese team would act as a decoy to lure the soldier ants away, while the Korean team would be tasked with infiltrating the nest to assassinate the queen. Goto believed this plan offered the highest probability of victory. Chairman Go silently acknowledged that South Korea could not mobilize as many S-rank hunters as the Draw Sword Guild, so he agreed to proceed with the tactical plan of Goto. Meanwhile, the army of Jinwoo was locked in a life-or-death struggle against Baran. The constant need to heal his soldiers was rapidly draining the mana reserves of Jinwoo. Unable to pause for mana recovery, he had to find a way to execute the boss as quickly as possible. The strongest warriors of Jinwoo relentlessly attacked Baran to help create an opening. However, when Jinwoo closed in to target a weak point, Baran easily blocked his weapon, lifted him up, and prepared to deliver a lethal blow. Fortunately, the Shadow Knights rushed in just in time to lock down the Demon King movements. Despite being restrained, Baron unleashed a massive blast of lightning that blew away everything in his vicinity. This single attack instantly vaporized the entire army of Jinwoo. Completely out of mana, Jinwoo could no longer resurrect them. On the other side, Baran drew his weapons, ready to welcome the final assault of Jinwoo. Both combatants charged at each other simultaneously, unleashing their ultimate and desperate strikes. Baran was overwhelmingly strong, slowly overpowering and exhausted Jinwoo. Furthermore, the Demon King's strikes were laced with lightning, making it incredibly difficult for Jinwoo to dodge. While trying to close the distance, Jinwoo was struck by a lightning blast that knocked both of his daggers out of his hands. Forced to defend barehanded, he managed to grab hold of the Demon King arms as Baran wielded his dual flaming swords. However, the physical strength of Baran was monstrous, and he continued to spew lightning directly at the face of Jinwoo. In this critical moment, Essel threw her weapon to distract the Demon King. Seizing this brief opening, Jinwoo channeled his raw muscular power into the ruler reach skill, using all his might to violently rip both arms of Baran clean off. Now missing his arms, Baran could only rely on breathing lightning from his mouth. However, Jinwoo aimed directly for the Demon King jaw and delivered a devastating and decisive punch. The sheer force of the blow was so immense that it sent the severed head of Baran rocketing straight into the sky. Essel was overjoyed that Jinwoo had finally secured the victory, though he was now too exhausted to even move. The quest to slay the Demon King Baran was finally complete, granting Jinwoo all the promised system rewards. Jinwoo congratulated Asil, telling her that her clan now stood at the very top of the demon realm. Hearing this, Asil felt incredibly happy that he had kept his promise to her. Jinwoo checked the system and saw that he had just acquired the final fragment of the elixir of life. However, when he prepared to craft it, the system suddenly warned him that the success rate and the quantity of the final product would depend on his intelligence stat. This made Jinwoo quite anxious, fearing the crafting process might fail. Nevertheless, he decided to proceed, praying for good luck. A few seconds later, the system announced a successful crafting, bringing him immense joy. He received a total of 6 bottles of the elixir of life. Now, his only concern was whether this item could truly cure his mother's illness. At that moment, Iron brought over the wyvern's corpse, prompting Jinwoo to praise the Shadow Knight for being so thoughtful. Jinwoo successfully extracted the wyvern's shadow, adding it to his army. As always, he had to name his new soldier, so he based it on its past name and called it Kaisel. Hearing this, the Shadow Wyvern roared in pride. Essel assumed this baby wyvern would be very fast, so she invited Jinwoo back to her castle to celebrate. However, Jinwoo suddenly remembered a reward called the Rune Stone. After digging through his inventory, he finally found the stone. Upon crushing it, Jinwoo acquired a skill called Shadow Exchange, which allowed him to swap places with any of his shadow soldiers regardless of their location. Jinwoo immediately turned to Essel and apologized, telling her to go home alone. He was extremely eager to return to his own home, so he bid her a quick farewell. Seeing Jinwoo leave so abruptly, Essel tried to confess something to him. Unfortunately, she was now only talking to a shadow soldier because Jinwoo had already used the Shadow Exchange skill. Essel felt deeply saddened that she could not share her true feelings in time. Jinwoo realized that Shadow Exchange was a highly mobile skill, but it had a massive 3-hour cooldown, meaning he could not use it continuously. He intended to head straight to the hospital, but since the distance was quite far, he summoned Kaisel as his mount and flew directly there. Meanwhile, the Hunter Association had finalized their attack strategy for Jeju Island. First, the Japanese hunters would use their magical power as bait to lure the ants. Then, they would deploy a magic jamming signal to prevent the Ant Queen from communicating with her soldiers. During this window, the Korean hunter squad would infiltrate the nest to assassinate the queen. However, Wu Jinchul was concerned about whether the jamming signal would actually be effective. Chairman Go admitted he also had some worries, and his plan included a retreat strategy if the signal failed. The association's immediate priority was to prepare thoroughly to send the hunters off. Their only regret was that they still could not contact Sung Jin-woo. Baek Yoon-ho invited his former teammate, Min Byung-gu, to a local bar for a heartfelt chat. Byung-gu was an S-rank healer who had retired from being a hunter. Despite not seeing each other for a long time, Byung-gu remained a humorous young man, constantly teasing Yoon-ho. However, Byung-gu soon grew serious and asked if Yoon-ho was truly returning to Jeju Island. Yoon-ho recalled the previous raid where their teammate, Eun-suk, sacrificed himself right in front of him. Therefore, Yunho firmly declared he had to go back and eradicate the ants, knowing that if left unchecked, the monsters would eventually destroy the entire country. Hearing this, Byung-gu deeply admired Yunho, calling him a true patriot. Byung-gu initially thought Yunho came here to invite him to join the raid. However, Yunho stated he only came to say goodbye, knowing there was a high chance he would perish on this mission and they might never meet again. Byung-gu shared that he could no longer endure the bloody reality of fighting monsters, which was why he quit being a hunter. He planned to take a civil service exam to become a history teacher, believing that war should only exist in the past. Yunho completely agreed with Byung-gu. For hunters, deadly combat had become an everyday occurrence, and some even found twisted enjoyment in it, proving that hunters were the ones who were truly abnormal. Seeing Byung-gu living such a happy life now, Yunho felt genuinely glad for his old friend. Jinwoo arrived at the hospital and found his mother still in a deep coma. He noticed the burn scars on her neck, which he had accidentally caused when he was a child. Even though it was painful, she had never blamed him and only embraced him warmly. His mother's love for him was boundless, so he resolved to save her at any cost. However, Jinwoo hesitated, unsure of what would happen when his mother drank this elixir of life. Having witnessed countless miracles produced by the system, which transformed him from a pathetically weak E rank into his current powerful self, he decided to place all his absolute trust in it. He opened the bottle, gently lifted his mother, and hesitated with trembling hands before finally pouring the entire potion into her mouth. He waited anxiously for a miracle. Within seconds, her scars completely vanished, and her face regained its youthful vitality. More than anything, Jinwoo desperately wanted to see his mother wake up, as that was his entire motivation for fighting and growing stronger all this time. Meanwhile, Gina was struggling to focus on her studies. When she stepped outside, she suddenly felt a very warm breeze, which also flowed into the hospital room where Jinwoo was waiting. Finally, the miracle happened. His mother opened her eyes and warmly greeted him. Jinwoo joyfully informed his mother that she had been asleep for 4 whole years, assuring her that Gina was doing very well at home. His mother thanked Jinwoo for keeping his promise. Looking at him, she felt her son's face had matured significantly. Noticing his many scars, she knew he must have endured unimaginable hardships during her absence. Hearing her words, Jinwoo could only cry tears of absolute happiness. After so much relentless effort, his greatest wish had come true. He had finally saved his mother from her terminal illness. The next morning, the hospital director was utterly shocked to receive news that an eternal slumber patient had woken up. Furthermore, the patient had made a full recovery, and the family was requesting an immediate discharge. When Gina finally saw her mother, she felt incredibly happy and rushed over to embrace her. For 4 long years, she had anxiously waited for this exact moment. Jinwoo felt this was the most worthy reward for his countless days of tirelessly hunting monsters. Chairman Go held a press conference to announce to the entire nation that the Hunter Association would officially proceed with the 4th Jeju Island reclamation operation. This campaign would not only include South Korea's S-rank hunters, but also receive support from 10 Japanese S-rank hunters. On the battlefield, hunters ranked A and below would be tasked with defending the coastlines and the mainland. Their duty was to support the strike squad and ensure the absolute safety of the citizens. Chairman Go concluded with a firm determination to see the mission through to a successful end. Byung-gu watched the chairman's speech, which reminded him of a past conversation with his fallen teammate, Unsok. Back then, Byung-gu confessed he was terrified of fighting monsters. However, Unsok pointed out that regular people who could not fight were 100 times more terrified than hunters. Therefore, they had to quickly eradicate the ants to end that fear. Unsok also mentioned that during a battle, only he or Byung-gu could provide the necessary support for Yunho. Byung-gu had never forgotten those words, leading him to finally make his own decision. Upon returning home, Jinwoo was annoyed to see that his sister had turned the place into a complete mess. Since his mother had been inactive for 4 years, she wanted to take this opportunity to clean the house together with her children. While cleaning, she reminisced about the many family memories embedded in their home. Jinwoo knew his greatest wish had come true, but a lingering anxiety still haunted his mind. He wondered if, by becoming a hunter, he had stepped into a dangerous realm he should have never entered. At that moment, his mother picked up a family photo and asked if his father had contacted them. She recounted that Jinwoo's father was once a firefighter who dedicated his life to helping the citizens. She found him so incredibly cool back then that she agreed to marry him immediately. She believed Jinwoo's decision to become a hunter meant he had inherited his father's courageous blood. Gina also shared her dream of becoming a doctor to help society, proving she too had inherited her father's dedication. Right then, Jinwoo received an unexpected phone call from the Hunter Association. Meanwhile, Chairman Go had just concluded his press conference. He received news that the American S-rank hunter, Thomas Andre, was en route to South Korea. Thomas was a man recognized as having combat power equivalent to the military force of an entire nation. The chairman did not know if Thomas was coming for tourism or regarding the Hwang Dong-soo incident, but he temporarily set that matter aside to focus on his scheduled meeting with Jinwoo. Woo Jinchul confirmed he had just contacted Jinwoo, and the young man was on his way. Chairman Go extended an invitation to Jinwoo to participate in the Jeju Island raid. Hearing this, Jinwoo realized it was an excellent opportunity to level up, and missing it would be a huge regret. However, since his mother had just returned home, he wanted to spend more time with his family. Suddenly, Jinwoo sensed a powerful wave of magic nearby. The chairman informed him that the S-rank hunters were currently warming up in the gymnasium and invited Jinwoo to go watch their training session. Inside the gym, Baek Yoonho was in a sparring match with an S-rank hunter named Ma Dongwook, the master of the Fame Guild. Since both were going to participate in the upcoming raid, this was their chance to hone their skills. Observing the match, Jinwoo felt that Yoonho was being overpowered, but Choi Jong-in approached and clarified the situation. Jong-in explained that if Yoonho fought seriously, his opponent would be crushed. However, Yoonho could not unleash his full power against a human, because doing so would completely transform his body into a beast. Jong-in also pointed out a few hunters from the Knights Guild, and finally the 10 S-rank hunters from Japan's Draw Sword Guild, led by their exceptional guild master, Goto Ryuji. On the other side, the Draw Sword Guild wondered about Jinwoo's true identity. Goto Ryuji remarked that Jinwoo looked like an assassin, but his translator corrected him, stating that Jinwoo was actually a mage-class hunter. Meanwhile, Cha Hae-in was slightly surprised to see Jinwoo arriving to watch the training. The Japanese hunters then observed the sparring match between Yoonho and Dongwook. The translator commented that the two seemed rather weak for S ranks, but Goto noted they were South Korea's top hunters and definitely not weak. The Knights Guild master, Park Jong-soo, overheard the translator's insults and grew highly annoyed, feeling Japan was looking down on them. Since Jong-soo was only an A rank, the translator dismissed him even more. Seeing this tension, Cha Hae-in criticized the Japanese side for causing unnecessary misunderstandings between the two nations. Seeing that the S-rank hunters of both countries were gathered, Goto proposed a friendly sparring match between the two sides. He generously allowed the Korean hunters to determine the rules. Chairman Go agreed to the proposal but noted they needed to select suitable participants, suggesting that close combat hunters would be best for this exhibition. Baek Yoonho established the rules where anyone whose wrist was grabbed, back was touched, or who was pinned to the floor would be eliminated. The format would not be one-on-one, but a simultaneous group melee. Goto readily agreed, and both sides selected their fighters. The South Korean team consisted of Cha Hae-in, Baek Yoonho, Ma Dongwook, and Lim Tae-gyu. In response, Japan also dispatched 4 highly skilled close combat hunters to the arena. Chairman Go officially announced the start of the sparring match. Jinwoo observed that the forces on both sides were quite balanced, though he found it unfortunate that Goto only watched instead of participating. Still, this exhibition match allowed Jinwoo to witness S-rank hunters fighting firsthand. As the battle began, Ma Dongwook immediately expanded his physical size, and the hunters from both sides split up to face their respective opponents. Dongwook, a brawler, chose to fight Kenzo Tanaka from the Japanese team. Meanwhile, Lim Tae-gyu was being relentlessly chased around the arena by Minoru Hoshino. However, since Tae-gyu specialized in long-range attacks, he maintained his distance and countered effectively. After just a few seconds of fighting, the gymnasium was completely wrecked by the hunters, prompting the chairman to consider upgrading the facility's durability in the future. On another side, Baek Yoonho was fighting a Japanese hunter named Kumamoto. Yoonho continuously launched aggressive attacks, but his opponent cowardly focused solely on running away. Yoonho suspected the Japanese team was using him to test Kumamoto's courage before they faced the ants. Annoyed by this, Yoonho transformed his arms, partially manifesting his beast form to fight more seriously. Yet, just like before, Kumamoto only ran and refused to fight back. After a brief exchange of blows elsewhere, Ma Dongwook was slammed into the floor by Tanaka, and Lim Tae-gyu was defeated when his wrists were grabbed. Meanwhile, Yunho was still frantically chasing Kumamoto without landing a single hit. The two victorious Japanese hunters then converged to gang up on the isolated Yunho. Cha Hae-in was the only one effortlessly dominating her fight, moving like a graceful dancer and forcing her opponent onto the defensive. Her movements were so fluid that her opponent finally understood why she was called the dancer. Hae-in swiftly defeated Kane Tawada and rushed over to support Yunho. Suddenly, Kumamoto attempted to sneak attack Hae-in from behind, but she reacted instantly with a rapid flurry of punches, completely astonishing the Japanese hunters. Following that counterattack, Kumamoto lost his mind and went into a berserk state. The Japanese team panicked, fearing his uncontrollable rampage, and wanted to intervene. However, Goto noted that the match would only be stopped if someone was about to get injured. As expected, Kumamoto wildly attacked Hae-in with blinding speed and devastating power, threatening to severely injure anyone who took a direct hit. Jinwoo could not just stand by, so he leaped into the arena to stop Kumamoto and protect Hae-in. He stated that Kumamoto had crossed the line for a friendly spar, but the Berserk Hunter tried to continue attacking. Consequently, Jinwoo was forced to completely subdue him. The Japanese team was in disbelief that Jinwoo could effortlessly incapacitate a Berserk Kumamoto. Goto, convinced that Jinwoo was not a mage-class hunter as the translator claimed, decided to personally test Jinwoo's strength. Elsewhere, Yunho admitted defeat since he could not fight two opponents alone. Jinwoo advised Hae-in to stop fighting since South Korea had already lost the match. At that moment, the translator approached Jinwoo, conveying Goto's desire for a sparring match. Radiating a fighting aura, Goto clearly wanted a serious bout. Jinwoo smiled and accepted, seeing this as a perfect opportunity to test his strength after conquering the Demon Castle. Seeing Jinwoo's confident smile, Goto felt he was being underestimated. Jinwoo requested that Goto use his full power during their match, a condition that highly amused Goto and made him eager to fight immediately. Meanwhile, television broadcasts were continuously reporting on the Hunter Association's 4th Jeju Island reclamation operation. Juhi felt that as a former hunter, she should contribute to this battle, so she contacted the association to join the mainland defense force. Back at the gym, everyone was highly anticipating the clash between Jinwoo and Japan's strongest hunter. Cha Hae-in had witnessed Jinwoo's overwhelming power in the A-rank dungeon, but his current opponent was incredibly formidable. She asked Yunho why he didn't stop them, and Yunho admitted that since their combat styles were mismatched, the spar shouldn't happen. However, everyone present was placing their hopes on Jinwoo, eager to see his true strength. After a brief warm-up, Jinwoo turned to Goto and declared he was ready. Before he could even finish his sentence, Goto suddenly closed the distance and threw the first punch. Jinwoo dodged it with extreme speed, confirming Goto's suspicion that Jinwoo was absolutely not a mage. Through this fight, Goto was determined to expose Jinwoo's true nature. Goto relentlessly launched high-speed punches, but Jinwoo dodged them all smoothly. Jinwoo realized Goto's combat level was vastly superior to other S-rank hunters. Hae-in noticed that Jinwoo was not just dodging, but actively testing his opponent's capabilities. Seeing Jinwoo's confident smile, an infuriated Goto pushed his attack and movement speed to the absolute limit, endlessly chasing Jinwoo around the arena. Unable to land a hit, Goto grew serious and channeled a massive amount of power into his hand, launching a hyperspeed strike that managed to graze Jinwoo's cheek. The spectators panicked, assuming the strike was too fast for Jinwoo to parry. However, Jinwoo had successfully caught Goto's hand, despite nearly losing an eye. By grabbing the hand instead of the wrist, Goto felt Jinwoo was mocking him and furiously decided to end the match with a fatal blow. Jinwoo sensed this and stepped back to maintain distance, before both men erupted with killing intent and explosive magical power. Knowing they were about to fight to the death, the spectators realized they had to intervene before the consequences became dire. As the two hunters charged at each other, an ice pillar suddenly materialized between them, and their respective allies rushed in to hold them back. Yunho urged the translator to stop the match before anyone got hurt. Jinwoo admitted he got a little too carried away, but the spar helped him gauge the abilities of the other hunters. Furthermore, he had successfully planted 5 shadow soldiers into the shadows of the Japanese team. Shortly after, the Japanese hunters bid farewell to Chairman Go and departed. Jinwoo then spoke privately with the chairman, delivering the important news that he would not be participating in the Jeju Island raid. Goto called his subordinate, Reiji, to report on an incredibly strong, newly reawakened Korean hunter named Sung Jinwoo. However, Reiji dismissed the concern, believing that no hunter could possibly be stronger than Goto. Furthermore, Jinwoo was not even listed on the official raid roster. Meanwhile, Cha Hae-in was also surprised to learn of Jinwoo's absence. Even the S-rank healer, Min Byung-gu, was not participating, which made Baek Yoon-ho quite sad. Nevertheless, with a total of 15 S-rank hunters joining the operation, the South Korean side remained highly confident that they would secure a definitive victory. As soon as Jinwoo returned home, his mother had already prepared a warm family dinner. While eating, Jinwoo reflected on the fact that she had just woken up after a 4-year coma. Therefore, he decided to skip the raid to spend precious time by her side. At the exact same time on Jeju Island, the ant soldiers had hunted down all available prey, leaving nothing left to eat. Driven by starvation, they began cannibalizing each other, deeply alarming the ant queen. Realizing they needed to leave the island to find food, she spawned her most powerful offspring to lead her kingdom's subjects. Shortly after, the ant king emerged from its egg with a bright red body. It rapidly grew to adult size and evolved into a jet-black entity, distinctly different from its kin. It then unleashed a deafening shriek that shook the entire island. The next morning, the news broadcasted alarming reports regarding the rapid evolution of the Jeju Island ants. During the previous raid, the monsters were still crawling on the ground, but they had now mutated into humanoid forms with wings on their backs. Consequently, the Hunter Association finalized their latest countermeasures for the upcoming operation. Meanwhile, while strolling down the street, Min Byung-gu saw children playing a game of hunters fighting monsters. Realizing that the citizens placed immense faith in people like him, he finally decided to take action to answer their hopes. Even Song-yi sought out Yu Jinho, requesting to join the defense force, but since she was only an E rank, Jinho immediately refused. Simultaneously, Juhi and other low-rank hunters gathered to accept their defensive assignments. Chairman Go had prepared all plans meticulously, and tomorrow would be the day the hunters set off. The following morning, the Hunter Association's naval fleets completely encircled Jeju Island to establish a strict perimeter. This blockade consisted of the strongest A-rank hunters, guarding the ocean to ensure not a single ant could slip past. On the mainland, Ma Dongwook carefully briefed his teammates before departing. He patted his vice master's head, entrusting the guild's affairs to her so he could fight without any worries. As for Lee Min-sung, the arrogant actor tried to use this war as a publicity stunt. Consequently, the Reaper Guild master had to have him escorted to the rear lines just to keep him alive. Meanwhile, the Hunters Guild strike squad fully assembled offshore. Their faces clearly showed signs of nervousness, fully aware this would be an incredibly massive battle. The mainland defense was officially left in the hands of Juhi and the lower-ranked hunters. Wu Jinchul reported to Chairman Go that all teams were in position. The mainland coasts and the waters surrounding Jeju Island were fully secured, and the Japanese decoy team had successfully infiltrated the island. Hearing this, the chairman was extremely pleased that the hunters had answered his call. Knowing Min Byung-gu was also participating gave him immense confidence in their victory. Seeing Byung-gu arrive, Baek Yoon-ho was quite surprised. Byung-gu joked that without a proper healer like him, Yoon-ho would surely end up dead. Yoon-ho was absolutely thrilled to fight side by side with his old comrade once again. Meanwhile, the Japanese team, led by Goto, had landed on Jeju Island and split into 4 squads, ready to strike on command. An A-rank hunter acting as a cameraman was also present, as the Korean broadcasting station wanted to fully televise this historic battle. Ma Dongwook felt incredibly proud, realizing this might be the last time citizens would witness an S-rank raid. The hunters absolutely had to secure a victory, because if they failed, South Korea would likely be erased from the world map. Receiving confirmation that the strike squad was ready, Chairman Go officially declared the start of the 4th Jeju Island reclamation operation. Upon hearing the order, the Japanese hunters immediately unleashed a massive surge of magical power to attract the monsters. From the helicopters, everyone watched in awe as a swarm of ants poured out like a broken hive. The monsters even began flying directly toward the choppers. Stepping up to initiate the assault, Choi Jong-in ordered the helicopter doors opened. He immediately launched a barrage of flaming spears straight into the approaching swarm. Numerous monsters were incinerated, but their sheer numbers were still too overwhelming. In response, Jong-in hurled a massive fireball that completely wiped out the entire aerial swarm. Seeing this, everyone praised him, agreeing that he truly lived up to his title as the ultimate weapon. Jong-in himself felt exhilarated to be back on this island. Before they touched down, Ma Dong-wook reiterated the plan one last time. The Japanese hunters would hold off the ant swarm for exactly 1 hour. Within that narrow window, the Korean squad had to infiltrate the nest and execute the ant queen. Sticking to the strategy, the Japanese team activated a jamming signal across the entire island. The sole purpose of this was to prevent the soldier ants from hearing the queen's cries for help, while their S-rank hunters slaughtered the scattered minions. Kumamoto remained too terrified to fight, while Kenzo Tanaka playfully toyed with the ants. As expected, the Japanese team's decoy mission was incredibly leisurely with no real difficulty. An ice magic hunter named Kei idly wondered what it would be like to duel a fire user like Jong-in. Meanwhile, Jong-in created a massive net of flames to seal off the queen's lair. However, Yunho noticed numerous branching tunnels, making the queen's location unclear. To solve this, Jong-in fired multiple fireballs down each tunnel to determine which was the deepest, assuming the queen was at the very bottom. Concurrently, Jinwoo was casually completing his daily workout quest back in the city. The deserted streets showed how anxious the citizens were, but Jinwoo firmly believed the raid would be a success. The deployed S-rank hunters were incredibly powerful, so his absence would not matter. The Korean strike squad eradicated the guards and pushed deeper into the nest. They soon discovered a massive room filled with eggs, indicating the queen was very close. At the highest peak sat a giant freshly hatched egg. Seeing this, Yunho felt a deep sense of dread, fearing the creature that hatched from it was an unimaginably powerful monster. Back outside, Tanaka sustained a minor injury and approached the healer, Shimizu, for treatment. But just as Shimizu stood up, a dark blur dashed past, instantly severing her head. Her teammates were left in absolute shock. Before Tanaka could even throw a punch, the monstrous creature zipped by and effortlessly removed his head as well. The final member, Tatsumi, desperately tried to avenge them, but he met the exact same gruesome fate, wiping out 3 Japanese hunters in the blink of an eye. Meanwhile, the Korean squad systematically eliminated the royal guards while hunting for the queen. Although these guards possessed S-rank strength, their movements were far too sluggish. The hunters coordinated their attacks with flawless synergy. Utilizing her incredible agility, Cha Hae-in effortlessly closed the distance and cleaved a massive ant in half with her sword. She noted that their heavy armor made killing them somewhat exhausting. However, Byung-gu confidently reassured everyone that no matter how tough the enemies were, he was right behind them to provide support. He also reminded the team to sever the ants' legs, as they could still survive briefly even after being crushed. Suddenly, Hae-in caught the distinct scent of a terrifyingly powerful monster deeper inside the cavern. Hearing this, Yunho activated his beast eyes and peered into the darkness. As expected, the Ant Queen waited inside, heavily protected by numerous royal guards. Yunho knew the Japanese team was currently distracting the ant swarm outside, meaning their squad was rapidly running out of time. Meanwhile, the royal guards inside the nest were as strong as S-rank hunters, and the true power of the Ant Queen remained a complete mystery, guaranteeing an incredibly difficult battle. However, Yunho firmly believed that with a lineup of such powerful individuals, they would definitely secure a victory. Unable to contact their teammates, 2 other Japanese members decided to investigate the area personally. Finding shattered glasses on the ground, they were horrified to realize their comrades had already been slaughtered. The young hunter, Kei, vomited as a highly dangerous scent hit his nose. He immediately conjured massive ice pillars to protect himself, but the Ant King only needed a light touch to instantly execute both men. Elsewhere on the island, Kumamoto and Tawada were also searching for their missing team members, but a swarm of ants blocked their path. Inside the cavern, the Korean hunters finally confronted the Ant Queen. Acting as the main support, Min Byung-gu used his magic to significantly boost the strength of all his teammates. Following their initial strategy, Ma Dong-wook took the role of the main tank. He expanded his body to giant proportions and raised his massive shield to block the approaching monsters. From the backline, Choi Jong-in unleashed his full power, conjuring a massive fire dragon that engulfed the entire ant nest. Although the regular ants were roasted alive, the royal guards, protected by their thick armor, continued to march forward relentlessly. Deciding not to hold back anymore, Baek Yoon-ho fully transformed into his complete beast form. He charged forward in a frenzy, grabbing two royal guards and brutally crushing them. Cha Hae-in was completely astonished, as it was her first time witnessing Yoon-ho's full transformation. Meanwhile, the cameraman received word from the broadcasting station that viewership had skyrocketed to 80%. Dedicated to his profession, he recklessly attempted to step forward for better angles to satisfy the audience's expectations. Fortunately, Byung-gu quickly pulled him back, warning him that standing before an S-rank boss was incredibly dangerous. Regardless, these broadcasted images allowed the Korean citizens to witness their hunters fighting with their own eyes. This was undoubtedly the most grueling battle the Korean hunters had ever experienced. They rarely fought alongside one another, yet they were now cooperating flawlessly to assault the Ant Queen. Ma Dong-wook acted as a sturdy shield, drawing the monsters in until they covered his body, then sweeping them away in a single devastating strike. Behind him, Lim Tae-gyu continuously drew his bow, unleashing a barrage of arrows that slaughtered countless beasts. Tae-gyu also provided covering fire for Yoon-ho to execute the heavily armored royal guards. Choi Jong-in maintained a constant barrage of fire magic, clearing a direct path for Cha Hae-in to approach the queen. Wielding her sword, Hae-in unleashed countless slashes, cleanly bisecting every royal guard in her way. The battle was so intense that viewers could not take their eyes off the screen. The hunters' sharp, coordinated attacks finally eliminated the last royal guard, leaving the Ant Queen as their sole remaining target. As the massive queen prepared to attack, Ma Dong-wook intercepted her, blocking with his shield and tightly gripping her tail. Seizing the opportunity, Lim Tae-gyu leaped into the air and rained arrows upon the boss's back, destroying her thick armor. Below, Yoon-ho unleashed a flurry of rapid punches, treating the defenseless queen like a mere punching bag. Suddenly, the queen spewed a toxic purple venom that began melting Dong-wook and Yoon-ho's bodies. Fortunately, Byung-gu was right behind them, casting purification magic so they could continue fighting. Byung-gu proudly declared that as long as he was there, he would revive the team as many times as necessary. Noticing the healer, the Ant Queen targeted Byung-gu, but Dong-wook forcefully blocked her advance. Taking advantage of the boss being restrained, Choi Jong-in blasted a massive fireball directly at her neck. Taking the full brunt of the attack, the queen unleashed a deafening shriek. Yoon-ho assumed it was a death cry, but he instinctively felt something was wrong. Realizing she was losing, the Ant Queen attempted to flee, but Dong-wook and Yoon-ho immediately tackled and restrained her. Byung-gu cast a speed buff on Cha Hae-in, allowing her to swiftly close the distance. Hae-in first severed all the queen's legs, rendering her immobile, then leaped high and delivered a decisive, full-power slash to the monster's neck. After continuous fighting, Hae-in was drenched in sweat. The Ant Queen's head finally fell from its body, signaling the mission's completion. Citizens across South Korea began celebrating the historic victory of their hunters, believing all danger had passed. Chairman Go smiled in deep satisfaction at his team's triumph. Only Yoon-ho remained uneasy about the queen's final shriek. Byung-gu, however, joyfully celebrated, believing that killing the queen avenged their fallen comrade, Eun-seok. Right at that moment, the Japanese team discovered the massive ant swarm was frantically rushing back to the nest. They reported to Goto that the jamming signal had failed, making him quite anxious. The returning swarm easily shattered the fire barrier created by Choi Jong-in and flooded into their lair. Cha Hae-in was puzzled, knowing the regular ants were too weak to break Jong-in's spell. She wondered what kind of entity possessed the power to do so. Everyone was soon horrified to realize the true enemy had just arrived. It was a pitch-black ant capable of standing on two legs, resembling a human. The moment it released a fraction of its dark aura, Hae-in trembled, unable to stand firm. The overwhelming sense of dread made her feel as if her spine was frozen solid. This creature was clearly not a mere monster. Simply walking past Ma Dong-wook was enough to make the tank feel as though his body was crumbling. The Ant King approached the queen's corpse, realized its mother was dead, and began devouring her remains before unleashing a bone-chilling shriek. Before anyone could react, the Ant King vanished and reappeared behind Cha Hae-in. It delivered a devastating blow, critically injuring her and sending her crashing into a stone pillar. Before Ma Dongwook could attack, the monster shattered his shield and tore off one of his arms, quickly followed by the other, rendering him completely incapable of fighting. Even Baek Yoonho was incapacitated on the spot with just a few basic strikes. Choi Jong-in was the next to suffer a lethal blow from the Ant King. Lim Tae-gyu managed to fire a single arrow, but the monster effortlessly caught it and punched him dozens of meters away. Miraculously, Dongwook managed to stand back up to save Tae-gyu. It turned out Byung-gu had been using a stealth skill while continuously healing the tank. Byung-gu believed that as long as he survived, the team would never lose. However, Dongwook's speed was too slow, and the Ant King tossed him aside like a toy. The monster then sniffed out Byung-gu's invisibility and violently punched straight through the healer's chest. Yoonho watched in absolute agony as his friend was impaled. Byung-gu only had time to tell Yoonho to run before the Ant King bit his head off. Witnessing his junior's gruesome death, Yoonho went berserk and charged at the beast, only to be easily grabbed and forced back into his human form. The monster mockingly repeated Byung-gu's final words, deeply enraging Yoonho despite his helplessness. The Ant King declared that since it had lost its queen, the humans must lose their king, demanding Yoonho reveal the location of the human king. Suddenly, the Ant King caught the scent of an incredibly strong individual outside and abruptly flew away, leaving Yoonho behind. Yoonho realized the scent belonged to Goto. However, he had no time to dwell on it and desperately tried to think of a way to save his dying teammates, as the massive ant swarm was rapidly closing in on them. Meanwhile, Goto had lost contact with two of his squads and was searching the island. He assumed the communication signal was weak, but upon reaching the rendezvous point, he discovered his comrades had been slaughtered. He immediately reported to the Japanese Association chairman, Matsumoto, that some members had died. Matsumoto completely ignored this, only wanting to know the status of the Korean team. Goto informed him that the Korean hunters were trapped inside the queen's nest and had absolutely no chance of survival. Hearing this, Matsumoto was overjoyed, as everything was proceeding exactly according to his sinister plan. He secretly intended to decimate South Korea's combat forces by sending them into a deadly trap. Matsumoto had also prepared a second strike force stationed offshore, ready to step in and claim the glory of conquering the S-rank gate for Japan. He immediately ordered Goto's squad to retreat and merge with the second team. Goto agreed, planning to recover his teammates' bodies later. However, before they could leave, the Ant King arrived and instantly decapitated the female hunter in Goto's squad. Goto urged the last remaining member to run away and group up with the others, knowing the young man would only be a hindrance. Goto now faced the Ant King alone, a creature radiating a terrifyingly murderous intent. The monster asked Goto if he was the king of humans. Without any hesitation, Goto proudly claimed that he was indeed the king. In response, the beast unleashed a massive wave of dark magic that entirely enveloped the surrounding space. This overwhelming sensation was something Goto had previously experienced during his spar with Jinwoo, making it impossible for him to ever forget. Deep inside the nest, the ant swarm was rapidly forming an army to slaughter the remaining Korean hunters. Choi Jong-in desperately tried to hold them off with his firepower, but faced with their sheer numbers, he was completely helpless. Everyone had sustained critical injuries and lacked the strength to fight back against the bloodthirsty swarm. The only person they could rely on was Jong-in, and he was quickly reaching his absolute limit. Just as the entire squad was facing imminent death, Jinwoo's shadow subordinates suddenly emerged from their shadows to protect them. Baek Yoonho was utterly astonished, having no idea where these pitch-black warriors had come from. Meanwhile, on the mainland, Jinwoo had quickly grasped the dire situation. He immediately used his shadow exchange skill to teleport directly into the Ant Queen's chamber. The scene unfolding before them left both the cameraman and the hunters in absolute awe. The shadow warriors took their place, charging forward to violently clash with the bloodthirsty ants. Igris and Tank were also summoned to join the fierce battle. Iron burst forth from the ground, teaming up with Tusk to eradicate any monster that dared to approach. Shortly after, Jinwoo slowly stepped forward, under the astonished gazes of everyone around him. They had no idea how he had reached this island, but they knew it was time to yield the stage to the true king. The television broadcast had suddenly encountered a technical issue and was forced to cut the feed. Viewers outside had no idea what was happening to the hunters. Woo Jin-chul contacted the broadcasting station and learned that the scene was in utter chaos. Hearing this, Chairman Go immediately ordered his subordinates to gather information and confirm the safety of the strike squad. Anxious viewers continuously flooded the station with calls, demanding to see the continuation of the battle. However, the station could not even contact their own cameraman, let alone retrieve live footage. People grew terrified, fearing that if the hunters were all killed, the entire nation was doomed. It turned out that the cameraman's equipment had simply broken down at the most crucial moment. Back in the cavern, Jinwoo ordered Iron to use his taunt skill to begin the sweep. Igris and Tank also bravely charged forward to slaughter the monsters. In the rear, Tusk assumed a defensive role to prevent the ants from reaching the injured hunters. This was the first time they had witnessed such a high-tier battle, leaving them completely bewildered. Baek Yoonho urgently asked when Jinwoo had arrived on the island. However, Jinwoo had no time to explain, stating he needed to heal the group first. He quickly pulled out healing potions from his inventory. Since these items could not be transferred, he personally poured the medicine into each person's mouth. Miraculously, after drinking the potions, all the hunters' grievous wounds healed completely, leaving them utterly stunned. However, when it was Cha Hae-in's turn, her severe injuries simply would not heal. It turned out her life force had dropped so dangerously low that the potions were rendered entirely ineffective. Jinwoo admitted he could not cure such critical wounds with items alone. Therefore, he declared he would carve a path for everyone to escape the cavern immediately. Yet, the ant swarm had completely flooded the nest, sealing off every possible exit. The sheer volume of enemies crowding the area made even Jinwoo feel a sense of intense worry. Chairman Go could not grasp the strike squad situation due to the island's signal interference. His subordinates also failed to contact the Japanese team after the black ant appeared. Fearing a worst-case scenario, the chairman ordered the medical and recovery teams to stand by. He bitterly blamed his aging body for preventing him from fighting alongside the hunters, leaving him with no choice but to pray for their safe return. Meanwhile, Gina was highly frustrated that the television broadcast was cut, desperately refreshing her phone to find any news updates online. In Japan, authorities received confirmation that Goto's life signal had vanished. They deduced he was likely killed the moment the black ant appeared. Hearing this, Chairman Matsumoto became violently furious, cursing Goto for being useless while wondering what was happening on that island. Inside the nest, Jinwoo's strongest warriors were clearing a path to help everyone escape. However, his regular shadow infantry was too weak to withstand the powerful ant swarm. Jinwoo needed to boost his army's combat power, but there were too many witnesses watching the battle. Using his shadow extraction skill would undoubtedly expose his greatest secret. Yet, to save Cha Hae-in's life, he had no choice but to act. Jinwoo instructed the hunters to stay closely behind Tusk to deal with the smaller ants. He firmly requested that everyone keep what they were about to see, an absolute secret. With that said, Jinwoo approached the corpses of the fallen monsters, preparing to use his extraction skill. Before Jinwoo could do anything, the swarm of ants suddenly parted to the sides. Their king had returned. Seeing the Ant King appear, the hunters instantly realized that Goto had undoubtedly been slaughtered by this creature. The monster unleashed a deafening shriek, radiating a terrifying dark energy that made everyone shudder in absolute fear. It announced that there was no king outside, then demanded to know if anyone in this cavern claimed the title of king. Jinwoo recognized this ant as the exact culprit who had destroyed the shadow soldier he previously attached to Goto. Ignoring the hunter's frantic warnings, Jinwoo stepped forward confidently. He unleashed his own powerful aura, fully prepared to engage in a deathmatch with the Ant King. The monster asked Jinwoo if he was the king of humans. Jinwoo simply smirked, sarcastically mocking the fact that a mere bug could speak. Sensing Jinwoo's razor-sharp aura, the Ant King screamed fiercely, forcing the other hunters to stumble backward. Only Jinwoo stood proudly and unbothered before the ultimate enemy. At this exact moment, the cameraman's equipment miraculously started working again, instantly transmitting the live feed back to the mainland. Initially, the broadcasting station hesitated to air the footage, fearing a gruesome massacre was occurring inside. However, the director resolved to broadcast the feed for the public to witness. Viewers were absolutely stunned to see Jinwoo standing face-to-face with the monster. Gina was left utterly speechless, recalling how her brother said he was just stepping out for a bit, yet was now standing on a deadly battlefield. Chairman Go was incredibly thrilled to see Jinwoo on the island. He did not care how the young man got there. He only knew Jinwoo's presence brought the absolute hope of victory. For Jinwoo, the real battle was just beginning. The Ant King launched a devastatingly powerful punch that struck Jinwoo before he could dodge. The hunters behind him panicked, assuming Jinwoo had foolishly underestimated the enemy. They believed a mage should never get that close to a lethal opponent. However, Jinwoo was completely unharmed. He immediately used Ruler's Reach to grip the Ant King tightly and slam it into the ground. Jinwoo then retaliated with a heavy punch that sent the monster staggering backward. The viewers questioned if he was truly a mage, as he fought exactly like a hardcore brawler. Protected by its incredibly tough exoskeleton, the Ant King brushed off the damage and instantly stood up to counterattack. Jinwoo effortlessly blocked the incoming strikes. What followed was a brutal, lightning-fast exchange of heavy blows from both sides. The shockwaves from their immense power made it incredibly difficult for the cameraman to even remain standing. After a relentless clash of techniques, Jinwoo emerged with the upper hand. His punches proved to be far more devastating, leaving the Ant King visibly shocked as it was continuously forced backward. Jinwoo's next devastating strike sent the monstrous creature flying a massive distance away. The Ant King was left in utter disbelief, unable to comprehend how the human standing before it could possess such terrifying physical strength. No matter how fiercely the monster tried to attack, Jinwoo flawlessly countered every single move. He ducked low and delivered a savage uppercut that nearly dislocated the beast's jaw. However, in a sudden and unexpected move, the Ant King flicked its tongue, lightly grazing Jinwoo's face and inflicting him with a deadly poison. The monster gloated that this lethal toxin was absorbed from sea creatures and refined using its own magical power. Believing Jinwoo was now completely paralyzed and unable to move, the Ant King smugly declared that the human's life had officially come to an end. Meanwhile, Chairman Matsumoto was extremely disappointed to learn that 7 of Japan's elite hunters had been killed. He had meticulously prepared this scheme, yet his team was now in a disastrous state. A subordinate reported a massive magical reaction inside the volcanic crater. They assumed the black ant had been severely injured by Goto and retreated to its nest. Hearing this, Matsumoto secretly deduced that the Korean hunters must be clashing with the injured monster right now. Believing both sides would fight until they were completely exhausted, he decided to seize the opportunity to assassinate the beast and claim the glory. Matsumoto immediately ordered his 3 surviving hunters to regroup with a second offshore strike squad and prepare to re-enter the battlefield. Upon receiving the order, Tawada urged the 2 remaining members to move out immediately. However, after witnessing the Ant King's overwhelming power, one of them had completely lost the courage to fight. He knew that facing such a monster meant certain death. Tawada felt deeply exasperated, but had no choice but to proceed with her duty. Back in the cavern, despite being poisoned, Jinwoo firmly gripped the Ant King's arm and delivered a crushing punch that shattered its tough exoskeleton. Baek Yunho did not even bother questioning it anymore, having already witnessed too many shocking miracles from Jinwoo today. It turned out Jinwoo possessed a passive immunity to all poisons, rendering the deadly toxin completely ineffective against his body. Jinwoo noticed the Ant King seemed incredibly rushed. He was equally anxious, knowing he had to defeat the monster quickly to heal Cha Hae-in. Without hesitation, Jinwoo lunged forward to attack, but the Ant King easily dodged. The monster realized that brute strength and poison were completely useless against this human. Consequently, the Ant King rapidly morphed its body into an assassin form, generating razor-sharp claws while shrinking its overall size to maximize its movement speed. Seeing this transformation, Jinwoo immediately drew the twin short swords of Demon King Baran and charged fiercely at the opponent. However, the Ant King's speed had increased drastically, constantly forcing Jinwoo backward. Since Jinwoo had not fully adapted to his opponent, he was currently being pressured. Furthermore, the Ant King could absorb skills from the hunters it had eaten, allowing it to generate numerous ice pillars to attack Jinwoo. The monster then chased after Jinwoo to engage in close combat, causing the ant cavern to be continuously destroyed during their intense clash. During the battle, the Ant King realized that Jinwoo's speed was steadily increasing, eventually matching its own. Both sides were now evenly matched, turning the fight into a breathtaking race of speed. They moved so fast that they only left trails of magic behind, leaving the witnessing hunters completely dazzled. Their spectacular exchange of moves was absolutely cinematic, making it impossible for the audience to look away. With his speed increasing over time, Jinwoo gradually regained the advantage. Holding his twin short swords, he threw them straight at the Ant King to break its focus, then dashed forward to unleash a barrage of punches. He quickly retrieved his weapons and completely severed the monster's arm. This was followed by a series of lightning-fast slashes that left the Ant King entirely unable to defend itself. Seizing a brief opening from Jinwoo, the Ant King retracted its claws and aimed directly for his face. However, in a split second, Jinwoo upgraded his mutilate skill, using it to brutally chop off all the limbs on the monster's body. The subsequent mutilate strike completely severed both of the Ant King's wings. Desperate, the monster was forced to rely on Byunggu's healing ability while generating layers of ice to obstruct Jinwoo's path. Realizing it could not defeat Jinwoo, the Ant King knew its only remaining option was to tuck its tail and run. Seeing the monster attempting to escape through the volcanic crater, Jinwoo immediately pursued it. He completely blocked its escape route and executed a relentless flurry of mutilate slashes, forcing the Ant King to crash back down to the ground with a body completely devoid of limbs and wings. Now utterly helpless, the Ant King could only shriek, commanding the surviving ant swarm to attack Jinwoo. Finding this completely laughable, Jinwoo simply summoned his shadow warriors to fight back. The power difference was overwhelmingly obvious, leaving the ants completely unable to resist. This time, even Kaizel was summoned to sweep away the monsters. Finally, Tusk utilized the Orb of Avarice to unleash an ultimate fire spell that pierced straight through the volcano. The Ant King questioned its own existence, wondering how a being born with supreme power could suffer such a miserable defeat against a mere human. Realizing victory was impossible, its only thought was to flee and preserve its life. The Ant King rapidly regenerated its body, desperately trying to escape Jinwoo's pursuit. However, Jinwoo used Ruler's Reach to grab the monster and violently slammed it into the ground right before him. The Ant King was now nothing more than a pathetic bug, too terrified to speak. Instead of using wings, it could only scramble away on its four legs, desperately hoping to survive. But Jinwoo coldly leaped toward the Ant King, drew his twin daggers, and activated the mutilate skill. With a series of continuous, ruthless slashes, he officially executed the hidden boss of the S-rank gate on Jeju Island. Jinwoo's level increased significantly, and the remaining ant swarm lost their courage to fight. The hunters, along with Jinwoo, breathed a heavy sigh of relief because they had finally achieved victory. However, Jinwoo had no time to rest, as his top priority was saving Cha Hae-in. Her life force was fading rapidly, and she could not survive a helicopter ride back to the mainland. Therefore, Jinwoo decided to take out the elixir of life for Hae-in to drink. This divine medicine had previously cured his mother's eternal slumber, so it was perhaps their last hope. However, the system notified him that the target was invalid, meaning the elixir was entirely ineffective for Hae-in's current critical condition. Jinwoo considered using Shadow Exchange to transport her back, but the skill had not yet finished its cooldown. He became extremely anxious, unsure of how to save her life. After a moment of thought, Jinwoo sternly ordered the cameraman to stop recording. The man hesitated initially, but Jinwoo threatened to destroy the camera if he did not comply. Following this, Jinwoo asked Tusk to bring over the corpse of Min Byunggu, the only person possessing the necessary healing abilities. Since Byunggu was already dead, Yunho grew furious, demanding to know what Jinwoo intended to do with his comrade's body. Jinwoo did not want to explain, and simply told Yunho to remain silent. He then approached Byunggu and activated the Shadow Extraction skill. Within seconds, Byunggu was transformed into a warrior of the Shadow Army, leaving Yunho and everyone else in absolute disbelief. Meanwhile, the Japanese team was executing Matsumoto's orders. The blonde youth still refused to move, paralyzed by his fear of the Ant King, but Ryuji informed him that the monster had already been annihilated by the Korean forces. Back in the cavern, everyone finally realized that Jinwoo's magic was not summoning, but rather utilizing the power of the dead. To comfort Yunho, Jinwoo explained that he had heard Byunggu's voice in his head, urging Jinwoo to use his power. As expected, without needing any explicit commands, the Shadow Byunggu autonomously used his healing magic to cure Cha Hae-in's fatal wounds. Jinwoo had to admit that Byunggu was truly a warm and selfless person. After witnessing everything, the group acknowledged that Jinwoo's abilities were incredibly overpowered, which perfectly explained why he refused to let the viewers see it on television. Yunho understood that since Byung-gu was summoned, he was now a permanent part of the Shadow Army. However, knowing Byung-gu despised fighting while he was alive, Yunho requested Jinwoo to let him rest in peace. Jinwoo understood that this was not a command like the one given at the Red Gate, but a sincere plea from the White Tiger Guildmaster. Therefore, he approached Byung-gu and released the extraction. Before fading away, Byung-gu offered Yunho a bright, satisfied smile, deeply moving his old friend. Byung-gu also silently thanked Jinwoo for allowing him to see his comrades one last time. On another front, Matsumoto was furious to learn that Jinwoo had slain the Ant King. He could not comprehend how an unlisted hunter suddenly appeared on the island. Furthermore, Japan had suffered the catastrophic loss of 7 S-rank hunters during this operation. His subordinates asked if he wished to proceed with the plan, but utterly defeated, Matsumoto was forced to order a humiliating retreat from Jeju Island. Meanwhile, the surviving ant swarm flooded out over the ocean, forcing the A-rank hunters into a bitter struggle. Because they had just lost their leader, every single ant had gone completely berserk. Nevertheless, the coastal defense forces fought with unwavering determination, refusing to let a single monster reach the mainland. Back on the island, a rescue helicopter belonging to the Hunters Guild landed. The strike squad hunters successfully boarded the chopper, bringing Cha Hae-in and Byung-gu's body with them. They grew highly anxious as the ants began scattering in all directions to flee the island. Knowing they would be trapped if they did not leave immediately, Choi Jong-in ordered his subordinates to start the helicopter and return to the mainland at once. Sung Jin-woo chose to stay behind on the island to eradicate the remaining eggs spawned by the Ant Queen. If the other hunters stayed, they would only get in his way. Furthermore, although Vice Master Cha Hae-in had escaped death, she urgently needed proper medical attention. Jinwoo allowed his soldiers to mercilessly destroy the ant cavern. Even though the eggs had not yet hatched, their massive quantity provided Jinwoo with a vast amount of experience points. Taking this opportunity, he drew Demon King Baran's longsword to use as a weapon. He unleashed a lightning-infused slash that instantly vaporized the ants before him, leaving him highly impressed by the weapon's destructive power. Not wanting this powerful sword to gather dust, he decided to test it out. Jinwoo eventually left the cleanup to his shadow army. After his subordinates swept the area for a while, Jinwoo officially reached level 100 in the system, marking a crucial milestone in his power. Although the Ant King was dead, its aura still radiated a terrifying strength. Jinwoo used shadow extraction to convert the monster into his own warrior. However, just as the skill activated, a dense darkness engulfed Jinwoo, stripping away his senses. He thought something had gone wrong during the extraction, but the surrounding space quickly returned to normal. The Ant King's soul rapidly merged into a cocoon, from which a complete warrior slowly emerged. The Ant King's imposing and majestic presence returned, entirely replacing the cowardly demeanor it showed before its death. Jinwoo breathed a sigh of relief, knowing the extraction was a success. Just as he was about to extract the remaining ant swarm, the Shadow Ant King spoke, offering a formal greeting to its king. Jinwoo was slightly startled, as this was his very first shadow soldier capable of speech. The Ant King politely knelt, requesting Jinwoo to grant it a name. Jinwoo was amazed to discover the Ant King possessed the general rank, which was far higher than the other soldiers, explaining its unique ability to communicate. Jinwoo first asked why it wanted to submit when he was the one who killed it. The Ant King replied that it had not died, but was instead reborn through Jinwoo's power. This filled the creature with immense pride, and it swore eternal loyalty to Jinwoo. Hearing this, Jinwoo promptly gave the Ant King a new name, Beru, which made the monster incredibly happy. Jinwoo then proceeded to extract the entirety of the ant swarm inside the cavern. At this time, the naval blockade had been breached, and the ants were flying toward the mainland. Despite being composed entirely of low-rank hunters, the mainland defense forces fought valiantly. Beru informed Jinwoo that approximately 4,000 ants were flying chaotically due to the loss of their leader. Jinwoo assigned Beru his very first mission to significantly reduce their numbers. Acknowledging the command, Beru immediately flew straight toward the coastal regions. On the mainland, low-rank hunters like Mr. Song were actively directing everyone to fight together. Suddenly, an ant targeted Mr. Song, but its body was instantly obliterated before it could even get close. He had no idea what happened, only catching a glimpse of a blazing streak of light sweeping through the sky and annihilating the monsters. While he did not know what it was, he knew it had just saved his life. Juhi, however, recognized that this warrior was definitely sent by Jinwoo. Meanwhile, the rescue helicopter carrying the strike squad was struggling to bypass the ants and return to the mainland. Choi Jong-in and Lim Tae-gyu were completely exhausted, offering only feeble resistance. An A-rank mage was forced to expend all his magic to maintain a protective shield around the chopper. However, the ants pierced the barrier, putting the group's lives in grave danger once again. Fortunately, Jinwoo arrived just in time, unleashing a lightning slash to clear a safe path for them. The hunters were immensely grateful to Jinwoo for stepping in to save them at the very last second. Having completed his tasks on the island, Jinwoo mounted his wyvern and flew straight home. Thus, the operation concluded amidst the triumphant cheers of the Korean hunters. They had successfully fulfilled their mission to prevent the ants from reaching the mainland, minimizing casualties to the lowest possible level. The S-rank hunters on the helicopter also returned safely, while the comatose Cha Hae-in was transferred directly to a hospital for intensive care. Although this victory required numerous tragic sacrifices, the hunter community had successfully neutralized the threat before it could spill beyond the island. Ultimately, the fourth Jeju Island reclamation operation was a resounding success. Meanwhile, a Chinese naval fleet was confronting the remaining ant stragglers from Jeju Island. The monsters had been attacking their position for 2 consecutive days. Initially, they planned to let their mage-class hunters handle the swarm. However, China's national hero, Lu Zhigang, decided to use this opportunity to stretch his muscles. He unleashed a terrifying surge of magical power, drew his twin swords, took a deep breath, and delivered 2 massive, wide-range slashes that caused the ants to explode in the sky. However, Lu Zhigang was not pleased at all, considering these ants mere pests, and wished he could have fought the Ant King instead. A few days later, a memorial was erected for the victims of the Jeju Island raid. Many people were deeply mourning the loss of their loved ones. Sung Jin-woo was also present today to pay his respects to Min Byung-gu. The television networks quickly reported on his appearance, stating that Jin-woo was the greatest contributor to the raid's success. However, his actions also drew heavy criticism. Some argued that if Jin-woo had participated from the very beginning, there would not have been so many casualties. After laying flowers for Byung-gu, Jin-woo quietly prepared to leave. Baek Yoon-ho approached him, advising Jin-woo to hold his head high with absolute confidence, because regardless of what the public said, Jin-woo was the one who ended the tragedy. Cha Hae-in also attended the memorial, but she felt too shy to approach Jin-woo. Before Jin-woo departed, Chairman Go met with him for a private conversation. The chairman first thanked Jin-woo for his immense contribution during the raid, but Jin-woo still blamed himself, believing Byung-gu might have lived if he had arrived sooner. The chairman emphasized that Jin-woo's achievements were monumental, as he had saved 5 S-rank hunters and spared the nation from a catastrophic disaster. The chairman promised that one day, he would repay Jin-woo in whatever way he desired. Seeing that Jin-woo had showcased a portion of his strength to the public, the chairman knew many organizations, both domestic and international, would soon try to approach him. Therefore, he wanted to know what Jin-woo planned to do with his power. In response, Jin-woo revealed his intention to establish his very own guild. Elsewhere, hunters from the Knights Guild were sent to Jeju Island to clean up the battlefield and gather resources. It was a tedious job nobody wanted, leaving everyone highly irritable. Only Guildmaster Park Jung-soo cheerfully accepted the assignment from his superiors. He proved his sharpness by discovering and executing a surviving ant. Suddenly, the group encountered a highly muscular, mysterious stranger inside the ant cavern. Due to the language barrier, Jung-soo had no idea what the man was saying. Another mysterious figure soon appeared and, with a mere snap of his fingers, forced all the hunters into a deep slumber. Unbeknownst to them, these 2 individuals were monarchs currently searching for the Shadow Monarch. They had come to the island after tracking the residual magical energy Jin-woo left behind. Both were utterly baffled as to why the Shadow Monarch was helping humanity. However, since their business there was concluded, they opened a portal and departed. Before leaving, the white-haired old man confirmed that their hunt would proceed exactly as planned, while the other monarchs simply left without a second thought. Jin-woo's father, who was secretly hiding in a corner of the cavern, witnessed the entire exchange. Meanwhile, stuck in heavy traffic, Jinwoo called Yu Jinho to share the news that Chairman Go had permitted him to establish a guild. Overhearing this, Song Yi frantically begged Jinwoo to hire her to work for his guild. Since Jinwoo was busy navigating the traffic jam, he politely hung up the phone. Shortly after, Chairman Go called Jinwoo to inform him about a B-rank gate that had just spawned in the middle of the highway. This perfectly explained why Jinwoo had been stuck in traffic. The chairman noted that hunters were being dispatched, but it would take some time, so he asked Jinwoo to clear the gate to speed things up. At the gate, the assigned hunters had not yet arrived, causing the traffic jam to worsen. Fortunately, Jinwoo stepped up, announcing he was there to close the gate. The manager wanted Jinwoo to wait for the other hunters, but Jinwoo confidently walked right in, knowing he alone was more than enough. Immediately after, the gate turned a sinister red, leaving everyone outside in sheer shock. Jinwoo felt incredibly exasperated, realizing he had walked into yet another red gate. The exit was sealed, and the forest inside was immensely vast. If he had known this was a red gate, he would have warned his mother that he would be home late. Nevertheless, Jinwoo firmly believed that with the low caliber of these monsters, it would not take him very long to finish the job. Without hesitation, Jinwoo summoned his entire shadow army into battle. Even Baru joined the formation, ensuring Jinwoo could clear the dungeon rapidly and return home in time for dinner. Meanwhile, Cha Heian confided in her guildmaster, admitting that the recent raid made her realize how inexperienced she truly was. She felt she was merely someone who needed saving, rather than someone who contributed significantly. Seeing how remarkably different Jinwoo was, she wanted to chase after him to stand by his side. To achieve that, she made a firm resolution to become much stronger. Back in the dungeon, Jinwoo's army initiated their ruthless sweep. After recent events, Jinwoo realized that hunters were born to hunt, but they must always be prepared to be hunted in return. Dungeons were places where the strong devoured the weak, an incredibly dangerous environment where the roles of hunter and prey could easily reverse. Yet, no matter how powerful the enemies were, hunters would continue charging into battle. Everyone fought for different reasons, some to protect their families, some to prove their existence, and others to fight against a cruel fate. Ultimately, a hunter simply continues to hunt. And other entities had not given up their intention to hunt Jinwoo down now that his true power was exposed. After a brief sweep, Jinwoo effortlessly cleared the B-rank dungeon. His shadow warriors lined up perfectly, clearing a path for him like a true emperor. Jinwoo lightly adjusted his tie, exuding absolute confidence as he prepared to hunt his next prey.